If you go to Las Vegas and you're spending money in the casino, they give you all the free liquor you want. So there's different,
Right.
sometimes when they look, turn a blind eye and they don't. Now, meanwhile, like in Vegas alone, ChatGPT 4 guesstimates that there's 75 million free beers being distributed in Vegas every year, just in casinos alone. That's a lot, 75 million. Now, those beers, say Budweiser, Corona, whatever, like Heineken, right? So those companies are totally happy right now that they're getting money so that their Budweiser branded beer can be distributed. But when I launched free beer in Las Vegas, and now every casino, instead of it saying Budweiser on the can, now it says Mandalay Bay, 25% off your next reservation, scan here, 50% off the buffet. Hey, go see Sigmeet, Fried and Roy or whatever. Like,
That's so smart, Josh. That's
why
so
wouldn't they
smart.
utilize their real estate? Because they're already spending it, they're just not developing it. Then these companies are gonna, my prediction, and I hope I'm wrong, they might attack us. But and they could hear this right now, and on everything I ever post, short and long form, I will have the politicians behind us, so their lobbyist card will not work. Number one. Number
Do you
two,
want to reveal this right now? What you're doing? Do you want
totally, totally. And number
to?
two,
Okay.
number two, by that time we'll have double the following at least we have today. It will be a PR nightmare for any of them. Look at Budweiser just putting a marginalized member of society in a commercial. Imagine what will happen to like Corona or whoever if they go against, the free beer movement, let alone free food. And then like any politician who tries to go against it will not be elected, in my opinion.
Thank you for taking a seat with the chairman. Welcome to Chairman of the Board.
I bet the board is spelled B-O-R-E-D.
Hey, how you doing, everyone? Welcome back to the Chairman of the Board podcast. My guest today is he's back for round two, Josh Cliffords from FreeWater. How you doing, Josh?
I'm amazing and just really excited to be here today.
Definitely, me too. So I thought I would give you a little intro because you've said this so many times, and I figure I'd save you the speech. So first off, I recommend going back and watching the first podcast we did. He really gives a lot of info in that. But for those of you who have not seen that episode yet, I'm going to give a brief, quick little rundown. So, free water is free because the packaging is the ad space. The ads pay for the water to be sourced from a natural spring, packaged, and then given away for free because the price of advertising has outpaced the price of consumable goods. No strings attached in a genuine win-win situation. 10 cents from every bottle goes to solving the global water crisis that affects over 2 billion people every year, all while still earning a profit for the company and its investors. They use aluminum bottles because they are refillable and infinitely recyclable. Also paper cartons, but never plastic, which is bad for the environment because I didn't even know this. 90% of plastic is actually never recycled. And also, it's terrible for our bodies to be drinking microplastics. Carrying around free water is like having a drinkable mini billboard in your hand. You can read the printed ads if you're interested in a company or local business. Then you can scan the QR code to go to their website, sometimes even getting special discounts. Also, advertisers can even utilize augmented reality on their water bottle. Josh calls this a triple blank canvas, 3 layers of real estate to advertise other products on a free product that gives to charity. How's that, Josh? That sums it up.
I definitely couldn't have done it better myself. Now I'm a
Awesome.
little intimidated. I'm like, holy crap, I got to step up my game. Everyone knows the pitch better than I do now.
No, dude, you do it great. But I was just going to ask you as my first question, are you a little tired of saying it over and over? And, you have to educate people because I know when I do stand-up jokes, it's like, it gets tiring saying the same thing over and over again. Are you a little tired of it?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
And I guess not because it donates to charity, right? And so
Right.
I think it's the same if you were like running for president and you say the same thing over and
Hmm.
over every time you go to a campaign and make a video. And yeah, hey, like I think even 20 years from now, even when like 99% of the world has free groceries, there'll still be that 1% that's like the person who still doesn't, like still using the Motorola flip phone. They're just like, wait, it's free because it's paid for by ads. I'm like, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Trump specifically really enjoys saying the same thing over and over again during his rallies. And that's, a, that's a good comparison, though.
I think
That's
every politician, and that's just the nature of campaigning for anything. Um, you have like your main talking points that you care most about, and whatever, if it's like one thing or 10 things, those are the things that will probably occupy the gist of most conversations.
right. But Trump's are more like, she's terrible. Like he's just crooked Hillary. You know. So yeah, since our last podcast, you have grown significantly in popularity, gaining millions of followers and expanding into several different states, right? What is it like to see a vision only you could see now become a vision millions of people can now see and actually use?
When you fail at something, I don't think that you could appreciate something if you easily find success. But when you fail at something over and over and over again, and I only said over and over again like 4 or 5 times. I need to say it like 10,000 times to
Uh-huh.
literally express how many times I fell flat on my face. And then you start marginally seeing even what you could see, like the vague shadow of some success. It starts feeling good. You don't feel all the way good because you haven't achieved the vision yet, but you start getting like a little spoonful of like the feel good cereal, and it's great. And people are really excited about the movement. And the most impactful thing about it is the majority of people on this planet believe what we believe, that things like food, water, medicine should ideally be free, profitable, eco-friendly. And it's a very powerful movement, and it's only going to grow more and more. I personally, I don't know if we talked about this on the last podcast, but what drove me to do this was guilt, because when I first invented these things, I wanted to quit because I was like, oh man, if you make everything free, like that's dangerous. Like my life could be in danger potentially. But also, I didn't know how to type or use a computer when I started. I was always the jock. I'm like, how am I supposed to be the next like great tech founder if I can't even type? It's dangerous. I'm comfortable. I don't want any of this. I'm just gonna drink a bunch more beer, smoke some weed, and forget all about it. I ever had these crazy aspirations in the first place. And then about 100 days later, I just felt so tremendously guilty, because I was like, you could really impact the world and the environment on a positive place. And I'm too scared because I'm comfortable, and I'm scared of overcoming like lifelong fears of computers and things like that. So I bought a laptop. I did like my first PowerPoint, which was horrible. Typed some of my first Word documents, and just slowly but surely got here. I still feel guilty, to be honest. I had this conversation yesterday. Um, I feel guilty because I've spent all my life savings, and now we've invested in investors' money, and that totals up to a little more than 500,000 thus far. But we've only donated 25,000 so far because every water does 10 cents. We're at our 250,000th beverage. So like the question I'm asking myself is, will I still feel guilty when the donation to charity surpasses like the out-of-pocket investment and the investor's investment? And I hope not, but probably so, until like we're, saved a million lives or something.
Hmm. Well, I think you are. It's, you're still at the beginning stage, and I. It's so interesting you say that because a lot of things I've done, I've also done because I felt a sense of guilt, and I think a good person knows. I think guilt is usually not a good thing, but in general, it gives you a sense of where you need to direct, where you know you have the responsibility to do good, right? When you have the power and you know you have the power to do the right thing and then you don't do it, usually the results are your fault, in my opinion. It's if you know you have the power to do good in the world, it is your responsibility to change it. And I'm so proud of you for actually going through that. You started small steps, right? You got a laptop, started teaching yourself, and slowly and slowly and slowly, you built this phenomenon of a company that is growing exponentially. And you're right, you're seeing that people really do believe in this product because those are common sense things that everyone knows, but everyone is scared to actually do it because there are real world consequences of big corporations and other special interests that are dangerous. And people have paid the price for it. Just like a JFK and
Yeah, of
RFK.
course.
Any person who really tries to do a lot of good in the world, something usually happens to them. Abraham Lincoln, those are the presidents that got there and did good, and something happened. So it is a risk going from being comfortable and choosing to do the right thing no matter what. And that is very highly respectable. I have a lot of respect for you for keeping up with that.
That's why early on I wanted to not try to patent everything. I also you hear the story about the guy who creates like the water powered car and then you like never
Yep.
hear about them again, sort of thing. I don't know if those are real or not, but obviously
Right.
everyone's heard the stories. Um, I also believe it's better to hide in plain sight. And so I took most of the things that would have been the most valuable patents and in my own way open sourced it so no one could patent it by just blabbing all about it on shows like this and on TikTok. And look, like you could try to stop a person, you could try to stop a company. You can't stop a movement.
An idea.
And you can't stop like a new type of economic model because it works with everything from electricity to so like even if like the government said, oh well, free water and free food is going to be against the law, which they wouldn't do because no one would ever reelect that politician ever again.
Uh,
Someone's just going to do it with like free gasoline and free, so it's look, I mean, porn's free, video, it's like everything is going that way. Um, and unfortunately, like look, you see ChatGPT and automation products. I do believe in a future 25, 50 years from now when a large segment of the society is unemployable. And then what? Like, is the US government going to supply everyone with a universal basic income? I know Andrew Yang wanted to do. I recently met Andrew, he's a really great guy,
really?
really nice guy.
Yeah. Okay.
But our government's in horrible debt. We spend all of our money on wars instead of ending things like poverty. And
Hmm.
I really don't see the US government ever providing a universal basic income. We're not Switzerland or Sweden or Germany or Australia, but I do see private companies and individuals or publicly traded too, making airlines free and profitable, making groceries free and profitable, making clothing, making medicine, and I see the individuals picking up the slack where the US government really just shot themselves in the foot because we burn through more money in history, oftentimes not on the right thing, if you ask me.
Of course. And it's not even like a real currency anymore. It's a fiat, made up nonsense kind of currency,
Not
not really
backed by
backed by
gold.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very fucked up. Everything's
But on that, and I am a lover of crypto and Bitcoin. A buddy in Silicon Valley said the US dollar might not be backed by precious metals anymore, but there's actually one thing that it is backed by, and it's innovation in the US borders. Because if you want to invest in Google, for example, or Tesla in the stock market, that investment has to be made in the US dollar. So even if you live in another country, China, wherever, you want to invest in some of the most innovative companies in the world, you do have to switch to the US dollar. And that will even exist if they change the dollar from like the oil's currency.
mhm.
But I do think it should be backed by gold, if you ask me.
And right. And it's the belief that it's basically the belief that America won't fail as well. Like it's a belief in the system of America. So other countries are kind of forced to support and believe in America, which is kind of an interesting strategy if you are an empire, right?
But
But
I'm
also
sure
it
the Romans
might make
felt the
other,
same. The Romans probably felt the same way too, right?
yeah, I was going to say it also makes, everywhere else kind of hate you. They have to depend on you, right? And it's, yeah. So we've made a lot of enemies over the years. Let's just say that. And
Yeah,
probably
totally.
going to come back to bite us in the ass. Um,
You're probably right.
so when you were going around to investors, um, and you got rejected over and over and over again, like you talked about, how did you deal with that rejection? And did it ever make you doubt yourself?
Every step of the way, it made me doubt myself. Um, so I originally I invented this stuff while living in Eastern Europe. And I personally like living in Europe better than the United States. I don't want to sound unpatriotic. I just like the lifestyle and I like the culture. I like not using English as a first language. It's exotic. I like the different foods. I just like not being in the US because I'm used to the US. You like something different, you know?
Hmm.
And so I really tried my absolute hardest to launch this initiative in London in Germany, and I failed. And in the early days, I would have said I failed because, well, Europeans are not as like big of risk takers as we are in America. They don't have like the investment capital, this, and a lot of that stuff is true. But the real reason why I failed so horribly the first years was I was a bad communicator. I wasn't communicating the vision correctly. And what really helped me was during the pandemic. I don't know if you hopped on it, but did you use Clubhouse at all, the app during the pandemic at all?
I never got a chance to, but I would listen to like Tim Dillon, the comedian, on it
Like,
sometimes. And,
audio only
yeah.
sort of app. And I would go into these rooms and like pitch your startup sort of rooms,
Uh,
and nobody got it. Because I would be like, hey, we're making a free Amazon and it's going to be great. And people be like, well, what the F is a free Amazon? Is that like an Amazon where there's no listing fees? Is that an Amazon where, and then I'd be like, well, it's actually a negatively priced Amazon. And then like there's no visual because it's audio only, but they're just like, what the fuck?
uh,
Like, what are you talking about? And then I just spent like all of my hours in these chat rooms, whether there was like 100 people there or one person there, just waiting my time to try to boil it down and like get rid of all the excess crap. And then eventually I boiled it down to like the basics, like our water is free because it's paid for by ads that are printed on the packaging. And that one sentence, like the one sentence pitch, is what I had to learn because I wasn't able to communicate it in one sentence and also not in a way that a child or my dead grandmother could understand. And so
mhm.
a lot of people in tech try to use big words and jargon. That's not a smart way of doing things. And so the pandemic and that audio only app really helped me boil down the way I communicated and look at myself in the mirror and be like, the problem here is me. And like, and then once I was able to communicate things better, I started using that communication on TikTok and then things really started to take off.
What percentage of your business would you say is communication?
100%. I mean, number one, we're an advertising medium, so it's a form of communication in itself.
Hmm.
Number two, we're doing something that's exotic. And so to walk people through the infinite number of options of how they could use the platform, um, that's communication. And then building a building a special culture within a company or organization, that's 100% communication, starting with like the mission, the vision, how you need to work with other people and respect people from all different walks of life, um, gay, straight, Chinese, Black, Indian, Hindu, Muslim, whatever, Republican, Democrat, whatever the differences are. If you're working in our organization, that all needs to be set aside for the greater good of what we're trying to accomplish. And communicating that, and always in times of good and times of bad, like reiteration of like the mission, it's nothing's possible without that.
Can you actually see almost a real time effect of the way your mood is as a leader and a founder of a company trickle down to your employees?
100%. Always. I mean, with anything, it's not even a company. Like, people don't want to follow somebody into hard times if you're just like, I'm unsure of myself, or
Mhm.
wishy-washy, or I guess even worse than either of those would be um, not practiced enough. Like, like you could definitely see the difference between an athlete or a comedian or any role of any fabric of life. Someone who's like put in the work and someone who hasn't. And in between, you could notice a difference. Like, once someone starts putting in the work, you already notice a difference, not only in like their delivery or appearance or confidence. And so the only reason why I'm really confident at this is I've put in a half decade of work, and my general hours of work are from 8 in the morning till 1 in the morning, 7 days a week. And like, people don't believe me, like, all the time. Like, people are just like, there's no fucking way you're doing that. But like, ask my wife. Like, last night I was up until 4:30. And like, like, it's fucking hard. Like, every day I wake up and it's just like, wow, it's another fucking hard day today. Like, so I go through
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
routine. Like, I listen to like a lot of like motivational things that I found on YouTube, or I
Hmm.
try to like take a lot from other people who have done really big things that people said were impossible in the past, and I try to boil it down in a way that like gives me more motivation. And I'm stuck in traffic for about a half hour every morning, and that's usually when I'm like chugging coffee and like kind of listening to a lot of these things. And then by the time I get to the office, like, it's like, all right, like, let's fucking go. Like, we gotta get stuff done. We gotta take one step forward at least today.
I definitely know that feeling of also, yeah, even just telling people. I do the same thing. I'll work from very early in the morning. Like I'll wake up, try and work out, maybe eat a little breakfast, and like, within an hour, and then I'll work from, yeah, like 8 a.m. to could be 1 a.m. or again 3, 4, just editing and or doing writing or putting together and organizing jokes. And then you tell people that, and they're like, there's no way you do that because their life is so radically different that they can't picture really, truly going all in, giving it your all. I have family members, so I'll tell them, yeah, I work nonstop. And they're like, no, you don't. And I'm like, yes, I do. Look at all I've done. They're like, you made all this? I'm like, yeah, what have you been doing? And they're like, oh, well, I've been watching Netflix. And, I actually watched these couple of shows. And I'm like, and then they actually go into the shows and they stop thinking about even actually like motivated to do anything else. They just like, they're stuck in that cycle of distracting themselves. And I think this goes back to, I believe everyone genuinely has a gift and a purpose in this life. And I believe most people, I think Carl Jung, the philosopher and writer, had a quote about this, that people will do absolutely anything to avoid facing their own souls. And I see that and I'm like, I agree. People will do anything to avoid the fear they have of the responsibility and the possibilities they possess in their life. And it takes a very special, disciplined, motivated, even by guilt, like both of us sometimes, to do the right thing and get going and have no excuses. And when it gets harder and harder and harder, you keep doubling down, you figure out a better way, and you keep moving forward. And you get inspiration from other people who have gone before you, and you realize they did it, I can do it. And then, at least in my experience, the harder it's getting for me, I recognize the steps other people have said, like, people who achieved the impossible or they were told was impossible. I've hit certain markers and been like, oh, I know what that feels like now. I actually achieved that. I know that step. I recognize that, you know? So yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with you.
I agree. You know the guy on the internet, David Goggins?
I love David Goggins. Yes.
So when I first got introduced to him, I was in the army and people were reading his book, and I can't read or write very well, so I never read it. But what actually got my attention from him wasn't like the videos of him just like running and talking shit to people, but it was when I heard that he had a Guinness Book World Record for 4,000 something pull-ups. And I'm thinking like, wait, I was a personal trainer and back in my old life when I was actually fit. And I trained athletes for a living. And I'm just trying to calculate like it's more than 4,000 pull-ups in like 17 hours. Then I started researching it. And then and it took him like 3 or 4 times where he failed it officially with the Guinness Book World Records people, like they're counting it. He failed like 3 or 4 times before he got it. But the amount of pull-ups he did in practice and preparation was like, I think it was like 80,000 or something, to like get his hands
Uh,
enough. And it puts things into perspective that some things are impossible. Like gravity exists, as of right now, like there's no
mhm.
anti-gravity shoes, but maybe one day there will be. And people have done things that are seemingly impossible. And then people like with David Goggins, they want to say, well, oh, fuck that guy. Like he was born jacked. He was like this. But then no, he's got that story where he weighed 300 pounds and then
Uh-huh.
lost like 100 pounds to be a Navy SEAL and then failed like 3 or 4 times. And,
Yep.
like people have done amazing things. And then all of a sudden it's not so amazing anymore. Like back in the day, before someone ever ran the first 4 minute mile, they said it was literally impossible and the human body would die because a famous runner had like a heart attack attempting it. Eventually, this guy did it. And then I think in the next 24 months, 20 people did it. Like Mount Everest used to be like something hard. And now you see the pictures of like 1,000 people summiting at the same time. There's like trash and
Hmm.
Snickers wrappers everywhere. Wim Hof did it in his underwear. And
I
and
heard
like
about that.
back
Yeah.
in the day, like a marathon was impossible. Then it became like the Iron Man, like swimming, running, biking. But now someone has a record 50 different Ironmans in 50 different states and 50 consecutive days. And so, like, what the definition of possible and impossible every day is like exponentially being redefined. And for the few people, like the 1/100th of 1% of people in this world who are actually like pushing themselves, I think they see it and they're attempting it and doing it. But then for that other like 99.99%, they just ignore it and like just I'll watch you know Game of Thrones or whatever.
Right.
And
They get addicted to the comfortable, right?
I'm gonna
A
go
lot of
binge
people
watch
are stuck
every
in
episode of Friends.
yeah. Or they'll just watch someone else achieve their dream,
Mhm.
and then they'll be satisfied just by that. And then they don't actually go out and do it. But some people, like you said, once those things are achieved, it does motivate and inspire tons of other people, like you said, immediately with the 4 minute mile. Was it
Yeah,
that one that you said? And then 20 people did it right after, right? That inspiration that really starts getting more and more people to do that. And with your company, like you said, in your model, that you're actually even helping other people to copy, which also provides like a layer of security for you almost.
totally.
Um, yeah, once you prove the proof of concept and that it's possible, which you've really already done, it's just going to grow exponentially throughout the entire world and permeate every country and borders. Won't even stop that idea.
I get a lot of
And
emails. Sorry.
I was just going to say too, like going back to the impossible thing, because I know I think David Goggins had a disability of some sort as well that
Well,
he
there,
had to overcome.
yeah,
Yeah, he had something too. And just from my own personal experience, doctors were always telling me like, you know, uh, you're gonna die, all this stuff, from like the age of 3, and I've been through so many surgeries and overcome shit. Doctors would tell me like, yeah, there's no way you can recover from this, and I'm like, okay, and then I just do it anyways. I'm like, yeah, they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I do. And when I'm dying in the hospital, I've died maybe a dozen times, or I really stopped counting at one point. Um, and you if you keep defining, I've defined for myself that the impossible is 100% possible. And when I see people, anytime I see someone like talking down on themselves that they can't achieve something, I really stop and give them my full focus and attention and tell them what I've gone through. And I say, look at all these other people and all these things that were impossible. You think an iPhone used to be possible a couple decades ago? What are you talking about? You use it every day now. Like, you know, I think it's very powerful for individuals like you and me and everyone else to show people coming from a place of certain disadvantages and revealing, like I think you're a very authentic person, revealing all the things that you had to go through to get to where you are today. And I think that's very important for people to hear because they feel like that, of course, as you know. And I think people will really take away a lot from that experience of how you've achieved this.
That's why, again, I've told you online and offline. That's why I'm really excited to do this second show. And that's why I really respect you because you've been through a lot. And yet, like, you're exploding right now on the internet too. And a lot of stuff is going on in an amazing way. And I think I told you after the first time, like, you're really good at doing these shows. I could definitely see you being like a Joe Rogan type of person one day. Um, and yeah, that's why I respect you, and that's why I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Josh. Well, yeah, Joe Rogan is doing my own version of that would be really cool. I'm definitely headed there. And, I'm doing okay on the internet. Like sometimes the algorithm doesn't, boost me. It's kind of weird how we're all kind of slaves to this
For the algorithm.
algorithm. Now I don't really like that. I mean,
Of
because you
course.
have to just hope it does. I don't know how you find it. You're very consistent with your videos on TikTok, and you've told me about how you have a content machine that you built, which is great, and you can always pump out all these videos. But for me, I'll work on a video, or even a short might take me like 2-3 hours to make one 30-second to a minute short, and editing it all together, finding the right clips, putting the captions and all that stuff, put it out there, and TikTok might show it to less than 1% of my followers and not even new people. I'm like, what is this?
Part algorithm, and it's also part creator in that, like, look, depending on what you see on your feed on TikTok, for example, there's a lot of competition to get someone's attention in the first 1 to 2 seconds. Like you and
Mhm.
I are competing with like cats and dogs that are playing the piano, like very beautiful looking people, like showing off a lot of skin. People
Uh-huh.
doing like really ridiculously funny or stupid things. And that's a lot of competition to, like, if I'm just, because I swipe a lot before something makes me stop. And and I think part of it's algorithm, and then part of it is also finding a way as a creator to try to get their attention in that first 1 second. And I've been trying to do that better and better, if that makes sense.
I have noticed you do have really good hooks right when the video starts. You
I
do,
try, I try.
yeah, yeah. What are those interviews? Not interviews, but like, what are those encounters like? Like, because I know you don't post all of them, obviously, because you have
Yeah,
so many. How do you pick which ones are the ones you make a video out of?
really chance, and because we've got like terabytes of like candid street footage now, right? And so
Mhm.
sometimes you film something and you're like, oh, I'll go back to like put that in your cookie jar. It's got to be good. And you go back and like, no, that sucks. And sometimes I'll post something and I think the video is great, and then it just flops. And then I re-examine it. I'm like, you know what? It's a 30-second video. If I boil it down to just the best 9 seconds, let me try that. And then bam, it gets like a million views. Or that's best case scenario. I like repost it 5 times, and no matter what I do to it, it just sucks. And I just chuck it in the trash can. And
Uh,
but like, look, like
I
it's
noticed though, like with the guy who also did your voiceover. What's his name?
all
Um,
over it.
yeah, Oliver, which is your most popular video that's gotten probably what hundreds of millions. now, or
On
because you
all the
kept reposting
reshares,
it?
on all the reshares across all platforms, it's probably at like 100 million, which is
100
amazing.
million.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But yeah, I've noticed like that video, every time you reposted it, it was successful every time. And that can show you there is something innate about what makes something
And that
trend.
video, I don't even use sounds typically. But the thing is that a lot of people don't like that character in that video. And that knee-jerk reaction of disagreement or anger, or the
Mhm.
few people that love him. And then just the not controversial, but the nature of what we do, like should things like water be free?
Mhm.
Should will it be handled less responsibly if food was free? Well, look, the way I look at it is it's being handled so irresponsibly today at a price. Like we got to try something. And these are the sort of questions that arise. And then that's what pushes the video out. And a lot of times it's not even necessarily like, hey, is FreeWater a great company or not? It's people just debating, for
The
better or for
idea.
worse. I try not to censor a lot of the comments, even if they're saying bad things about me or what, because people say a lot of mean things about me on the internet. That's just the nature of being on the internet.
Yeah, I know. It's the same here.
As long as people aren't being extremely racist or hurtful to one another, I let the comments fly because, and now I can't catch everything because we've posted a lot of videos, but um, I'll give you an example. Um, One of the videos, someone calls me a socialist. And so because of that, and like I don't care, but because of that in the comments, you've got a lot of people like, well, number one, it can't be socialism. Like there's ads on it. That's like peak capitalism right there. But like other people are like, well, how are you going to talk shit to the FreeWater people? Like they're trying to make free supermarkets. Other people are just like a lot of Gen Z people, like, what's wrong with being a socialist or a communist? And then you've got like Gen Xers and baby boomers like, well, World War II was fought against this. And then they're just like, well, like, shut the hell up, boomer. Like, you guys had your chance and you destroyed the planet. And like a lot of the comments that are going, like, there's nothing to do, like, by like the 10th comment in a thread, it's no longer about anything in the video. It's like, are you a cat person or a dog person? Or like, I bet your favorite color is pink, or I know who you voted for. And like,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
there was a video of a woman on Instagram that has like 24 million views right now. And when we filmed this, right after filming, I actually ran away because I was scared of like physical harm. And that's what happens. You give out enough waters or anything, you hang out on any downtown street corner long enough, like eventually you're going to run into someone who scares you for better or for
Hmm.
worse. And it was about a 60-second interaction, but I only clipped it at like 11 seconds of it. But believe it or not, in that 60-second interaction, she said that she was a Trump supporter and she compared Biden to like Kim Jong-un and blah, blah, blah. But when I clip it where I clipped it, right?
Hmm.
At least 10% of those comments are from Trump supporters claiming that she's a Biden voter. And it's funny because
She's a
like,
paid actor. Yeah.
no,
She's,
no one's even like, some people that too, but like it's funny that she, like, I know because I filmed it, that she was 100%, she voted for Trump, like that, she said it, like, and you know, but the way that she reacted and the type of shirt she was wearing, and because she happens to be a liberal looking person,
hmm.
that the Trump, like the people who vote Republican in the comments are like, I know you voted for Biden and Clinton. And other people like, no, she's definitely like a Trump supporter. And it's like, how did it even get to that in the first place? And I don't even, like, the whole video is not about it. But it's weird how the comments like spiral.
Well, yeah, because it's not even you're posting the video to just show a crazy interaction while you're giving away something free. The purpose is this is something crazy that happened versus getting political and saying all crazy people are this side or that side. But that's how polarized our country is, that you can't even come together to agree on something that is, we should all agree that water should be free. Like it's like what, like that should be one of the most uncontroversial topics. And obviously it is not a socialist or communist product because like you said, there's advertisements on the bottle and you are making money from the advertisements. Like you're a profitable company. And you're giving to charity. It's a win-win-win situation. And but they're still arguing about nonsense. But that's the thing. Like I think even Yuri Bezmenov, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's this Russian, he was basically explaining in the 1980s, basically how in America that what will happen over the next coming decades to our country is basically we'll become a demoralized, polarized society, always at each other's throats. And basically we'll get to the point where you could show somebody the truth and they'll just reject it because they're so embedded in their own narrative that they can't deny the identity they built up for themselves in their head. Otherwise, they'll have a catastrophic collapse of who they are. So they'll go into like fight or flight and freak out pretty much. And that becomes everything they are about in every facet of their being, pretty much.
I think that's already happened. Like, unfortunately, but I do think that that's also like another opportunity to work to change the system from inside out. Because unfortunately, who runs the government? Corporations. Lobbyists shouldn't be legal, but that's a very legal thing, which I don't agree with. No president, in my opinion, regardless of Democrat, Republican, or other, will represent the will of the people unless you get rid of lobbyists or the money stream coming from the lobbyists completely changes, which is why we're trying to like play a game of chicken with the world's biggest companies and basically say like, if you guys do not copy, you will die. And once they start realizing that and copying, I do believe that their stream of money, which runs to the politicians, instead of doing shady stuff, will actually go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually trying to, in order to change the way governments work, we unfortunately have to change the way companies work, in my opinion.
Going the inside out is the smartest and I believe the only strategy to get us out of the place we're in now. I think you're doing the right thing because how could you get big money and lobbyists out of politics when it's so deeply embedded? And that is the system. That is the system. How do you change something that is the entire system? That's what it's based on. You have to go from the inside out and influence the companies to change before you can actually change the system. Yeah, I agree. Okay. We're already 40 minutes in. It's so easy talking to you. I've barely gone to my questions. I seriously could talk to you forever.
Might have to do a part 3 soon then.
Yeah. Shit. Okay. So yeah, I was going to talk to you about, you recently did a deal with NBC and I want to ask you how that deal came about and your experience with it.
So we're in the middle of it right now. Those they're aluminum bottles and they're being manufactured. They'll be, I believe, finished at the end of this month and delivered at the end of this month on the 27th. And so from the very beginning, we knew, okay, like you can bring in advertisers, but ad agencies, they have pools of advertisers and ad spends. So we were always trial and failure. Like, how the fuck are we going to get like ad agencies involved in this? And so now we've got like a little pool of like, 5 to 10 ad agencies who have officially added our offering to their book of offerings. And so now ad agencies get 20%, if they sell the ad medium at the suggested price. But if they
Mm.
sell it beyond that, whatever. And so this big deal for us, and it is a huge deal for us. It's 30,000 waters. It's got NBC's biggest shows on it. It's got like America's Got Talent, Ninja Warrior, their Hot Wheels show. A lot of their shows on it came from an ad agency. And it really kills multiple birds with one stone, because it's like, look, number one, no company could deny that it's a great ad medium. It's good enough for NBC. It's good enough for Home Depot or Nike or Amazon or whomever. But then it also shows like, wow, an ad agency can add us to their book of offerings and make a killing and be happy that every water donates 10 cents to charity too. And Map 360 is an amazing ad agency, and they're the ones who closed that deal. And not only are they just like a really great company, they're just really nice, kind people. They were here during South by Southwest. We got to meet them and chat with them for a little bit. And like, it's the kind of people that you would want to hang out with on your day off, which I never have,
Mm.
and you probably never have, but like,
Mm.
that's the type of person, whether it's like a team member or an investor, or I guess now an ad agency who's working to sell for us. Like, I want to surround myself with people that I would want to hang out with on my non-existent hour off. And that's definitely them. We'll forever be in debt to them for like closing that deal. And it's just the first of many. Like, they're already working on the next big ones and the next big ones. And it's just really exciting.
That's awesome. So like 30,000, that's almost like a proof of concept, right? Of them being like, all right, this actually went really well. We made a good amount of money on this and good amount of return, ROI. Now we're going to order 60,000 or 100,000 or right.
Totally.
And then this also proves, like you said, and signals to all these other companies, this is a real viable option and is a pathway to the future. And we should get in on it now while we
Get in
can.
on the ground
Right.
floor. And
Mm.
And like at this early stage of our business, leads are coming to our website inbound that are just at this moment above our pay grade, because we don't have anyone on the team who's like closed $10 million deals yet, including myself. But like, so even yesterday, a lead came in, a guy in Oklahoma. I think he has like two to 500 music venues and events he puts on a year. He goes through 500,000 bottles of water a year. And the crazy phenomenon is that for whatever reason, he can't sell bottled water. Most events already have a deal with like Liquid Death or Dasani to sell it
Mhm.
for like to the moon. But I can't close that deal yet with my lack of experience. So on Monday, we're going to ask that ad agency, is this something that you guys want? And they're going to be really straightforward. They're going to say like, yes or no. If they say no, it'll be back to the drawing board. Like, how the heck are we going to solve this? But there are some leads that are now coming in where we recognize like, hey, someone else could close this more easily than us. So we call them or some of these other agencies, like, you guys want a piece of this action? And it also strengthens like the collaboration and like the partnership that much more, if that makes sense.
Right. What do you think it is about closing the deal that you feel you aren't ready for or has some inadequacies there? Like what would it take for you to actually close it yourself, you think?
I personally don't have the bandwidth. I don't do sales in our company anymore, so other people
Okay.
are. Look, right now, if you want to advertise with FreeWater, you go to our website, you click on the advertiser page, you fill out the advertiser form, and then we'll make an appointment with you. It's like kind of like the year 2010 still, or 2005, and then we'll walk everyone through their options, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But if you want to advertise with Google, it's fully automated. You never speak with a human. And so we didn't want to try to automate it right off the bat, because you don't want to build software infrastructure, try to automate something until you understand it better, right? And
Hmm.
so now we've got a really good grasp on everything. We've made a ton of mistakes. There'll always be more mistakes, but we've got the big mistakes behind us. Next step is to automate that system. And so now a lot of these deals, like maybe 1% of our deals fall through the cracks because they wanted to buy on the spot and there was no option to buy on the spot. So like, bam, once we first step of automation, it's like now 1 or 2% of the deals that did fall through the cracks are now being fulfilled. But then in the future, we'll automatically match up the advertiser and the distributor because we've got like a whole Rolodex of growing like thousands of different distribution points, maybe even tens of thousands. But there's just no algorithm yet, even though I've designed it to match it because we just haven't built that yet. And so a lot of these things will be taken care of on their own. And that has no lack of experience or experience needed because it just automatically matches the opportunity with the advertiser.
Okay.
But
I
in
was
this,
just saying though, for like, sorry to interrupt you, but I just meant like, because you said you don't have experience closing that big of a deal and stuff, and you don't think that you could do it or
I know
something.
we,
So I was just curious.
but not as easily as someone who's closing deals that size every day of the week. You
Okay.
know,
Is it because of like legal terms and issues or
no,
just
it's
like
just like
pure? Because
it's
you were
just
an
like
amazing salesman. You know,
yeah,
you were one
okay,
of the
it's
best salesmen
more
I've seen.
okay. Let me communicate it differently.
Okay.
It's more along the lines of a lot of things in business isn't what you know, it's who you know.
Hmm.
So I don't know as many people now as I'll know 5 years from now.
Right.
Whether I'm saying me as a person or us as a company. And so these ad agencies, they've been around for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So their connections are just so vast that they could just pick up the phone and be like, hey, Michael, I got another $10 million ad order for you. And you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, no problem. Let's talk about it over at Applebee's tomorrow night or like Ruth Chris or whatever they do, you know? And so
Hmm.
just at this stage,
Okay.
it's not like a knowledge thing or an experience thing. It's just a who you know thing.
Okay.
And
All right.
while that pool is getting bigger of who we know and who we're connected with every day exponentially,
Hmm.
we just still don't know that many people compared to who we'll know 3 years from now.
Right.
That makes
Well,
sense.
another question that came up was, you said you designed an algorithm to match everyone together, the advertisers and distributors and everything. So how did you design that? Do you have a background in, or did you hire people who know how to design that, or were you involved in actually creating the actual algorithm?
So again, I didn't know how to type 6 years ago.
Right. That's
So I'm not a coder, but I've taught myself so much about software architectures on the front end, back end, and middle of it, ecosystems. But more importantly, I just closely examined Facebook, Google, YouTube, and TikTok's way of selling ad space. And I realized it's so ass backwards. But they just can't see it through the lens that they're doing because they all copied one another.
can you
So
explain can you explain that system and then how you think they are viewing it backwards?
I'll explain a little bit of it, but it's one of those things I can't go into too deep of detail and
Okay.
want to patent something. But have you ever advertised with Facebook or Google before?
I've done Google ads, yeah, before.
Okay, so what if you
Yeah.
don't mind me asking, what were you advertising?
I think it was our last podcast.
Okay, okay.
I was trying to for a little bit, but
So when you
yeah.
go to advertise with them, like right off the bat, it's like check the box. Do you want more followers? Do you want more website traffic? Are you trying to sell something? It's like check one of these options, right? So then you check it, and then it's just like, well, do you want to target it between this demographic, like male between this age, women between this age, location based, like just, in America or the state of Texas or Austin or Saudi Arabia, like, and the more things that you check, the more targeted it becomes, the more they charge you per click. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, but what if you don't want one of those first 3 or 4 options? Right? Like they're trying to put you, your podcast, your t-shirt company, or whatever you do, your service in a box. But what if you do not belong in that box? There's no customization, right?
Okay.
And so
Right.
like a good way to completely solve that from the very beginning is like, yeah, you could give them like the top 10 most common options, But hey, if you don't fit there, tell us what you want, and we'll give you that dynamic custom solution. That's not possible. So they all copied one another in the let's put everyone in the same box, whether you belong there or not. And then also, never when you went to go swipe your credit card, did a pop-up box come up and it's like, hey, sorry, Michael, but we think your ad sucks. We don't, it's confusing. It's there's no special offer, there's no this, there's no that. We rate it like I'm just pulling a number out of my ass, but like a 3.8. And we really don't recommend that you publish this unless it's an 8.0. And here's all the different ways you could solve that for free, not like, hey, pay us and we'll, but no, they just say, yep, throw your $10 in the slot machine, pull the crank, like on to the next person. So they put people in a box and then they don't help them for free to make the adjustments to get better results. And the platform that I designed, however long it takes to build it, solves both of those problems in unique ways and more. And
so
now,
is this platform just for FreeWater, or is it going to be a whole new other type of product for different kinds of businesses?
So it's going to be for every type of advertising medium we offer in the future, whether that's like a physical ad on the packaging or on the digital side of things. Because certain things you can make free by putting ads on the packaging, like water, cereal boxes, cars. But like my iPhone, this $1,000 piece of equipment, I can't make for free by putting a Nike swoosh on the case. That Nike swoosh is worth like $1. This is worth $1,000. So the only way to make that free is by watching enough digital ads to pay for this or to pay for that $100 bottle of whiskey that you can't make free by slapping ads on it, right? So whether they're advertising in the future on physical goods or whether they're on the digital ends of our platform, it will work the same. It will not only get you the targeted audience that you want, but it's going to progressively make sure that everything works more efficiently. And the only way to guarantee that is to make sure we don't put you in a box, to make sure we 100% understand your exact needs as an individual, consumer, business, whatever, and to progressively help you attain your goal for free. And until you're ready to put the money in the slot machine and give it a risk. But by then, hopefully you've done everything in your power and we've done everything that we could to help you to get exactly what you want on that ad. And no company in the world offers that. Why? Because they don't give a fuck. They just want you to throw that nickel in there. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, like Hunger Games. And I don't think that's ethical. And especially,
well, I can say,
yeah, go for it.
I was going to say from my experience with Google ads, like I did it for myself and I did it for a couple of clients of mine, and I never really saw them to be that effective either. I just saw like it just kept spending your money over and over again with very low like click-through rate, and it wasn't as targeted, I agree, as
look, like, why didn't they reach out to you, like, personally, even if it was a robot reaching out to you, like their version of Siri, just like, hey, Michael, your ad is not going very well. We recommend you pull the plug on spending and let's get you all these free resources to make your ad better. And then we try again. They're just like, no, like, let's have you burn through your hard-earned money and we're not going to help you one bit.
Right. But then, because it didn't work that well, I'm usually pretty good at designing good quality things. And I know
all of your stuff looks great. I've always told you that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know it is because I know you're a very honest person, and you tell people, like you said, you'll give them an honest rating, like, yeah, this needs to be fixed. And if Google did come back and tell me like, hey, on our platforms, it isn't working for this specific reason, and gave some guidance, I might have went back and been like, okay, I fixed these things. Oh, look, it's working better now. But because that doesn't happen, I'm done. I'm just done with them. And I found other avenues that are better, I think, than Google ads. So the fact that you're taking the time to do the right thing right? And having, you know, business ethics. I believe that is why you are going to be so successful in every endeavor that you keep building out.
And it's not only helping people to work better, because look, sometimes they don't want to listen. Like I've told people, your ad will not work. And they're just like, this is the ad we want, manufacture the freaking water. Like at that stage, there's nothing you could do. Like you said your piece, you know, even pre-automation, like I physically have told them why it won't or this or that. And they're just like, take it or leave it kind of thing. But there's been many cases where people have recently wanted to buy significant numbers of waters to advertise on, 50,000 to be exact, and that donates $5,000 to charities. So I really want that ad spend, but I'm like, look, I don't want to take a penny of your money right now because you don't have a good website and you don't have a good social media. And regardless of the quality of the ad, whether I think the call to action or the special offer is good enough, you simply won't get the results you want until you fix your website and social media. And we don't do that for people. And I'm just like, please come back to me when you do. And I don't know if they'll ever come back or if they just went and spent that on Facebook, or I hope that they're, because I actually spent like 2 or 3 hours of my own private time, like auditing their website and social media and like giving them tips for free, which I know they appreciated. But I know that Google's not saying like, you know what, Michael, like respectfully, I think you would do better advertising with TikTok or Facebook. They would never say that in a million years. And in certain circumstances, I go and I tell people flat out, like, you know what, in this case, you should go advertise it on Facebook this specific way and come back to us when you've done things a little bit different. And because if you get horrible results, or if I don't try my best to do the right thing, it just slows down what we're trying to accomplish.
I've never met anyone else that has done that. I've done that same exact thing before. I try to be as authentic and honest with people, any clients that I have had, and I tell them exactly what they need to do and what's wrong. And sometimes I'll just be like, "Hey, I do these things, and I'm amazing at this stuff. I'm good at this stuff. I'm still building my skills. You should go over here and do this first." And they appreciate the hell out of it. And I don't know if they're gonna ever come back to me, but most of the time they do, and they say, "I'm so thankful you did this," and then they really want to work with me because there's trust there, and they know that I'm gonna always be honest with them. So I really respect that you do.
And then like, I guess one more thing on algorithms. Have you personally noticed the difference between like Facebook and TikTok in that historically Facebook kind of tears people apart? And while there is a lot of hate on TikTok and trolls, I do feel like the TikTok algorithms do a little bit better of a job of like uniting communities.
hmm
But I still see an opportunity for social movements and platforms. And while people don't see it yet, the free grocery system is going to be its own type of social network and social structure in the future. But the moment that everything's fully connected through mobile, and I guess in the near future wearables too, there is an opportunity for tech companies to come and release algorithms that specifically focus on uniting groups, uniting individuals. The more marginalized the person or group is in society, whether it's due to their ethnicity or beliefs or handicap or whatever, that no app yet today or no social network today has used the technological advantages to software to unite people in ways that we plan on doing in the future. And I don't want us to be the first to do it. I hope before we achieve it, someone else like does it. And then I'm like, you know what? They're doing it so well. I'm not even going to attempt to do this. But I just know that's where we're taking it, because I know the capabilities of these softwares and these systems and what you can do. And I see that being an available niche that no one wants to attack at this moment, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. I mean, Facebook and I think Twitter are definitely just based off of hate and anger, and that's where they get most of their engagement from. which is most valuable to advertisers, right? Engagement and shares and whatever. And I think TikTok is a community-based platform that the algorithm got so good at narrowing down a niche that you are like, oh my God, the algorithm like knows me better than any friends or family. And I find these people who I vibe with completely. And you're like, you open up the app and you're like, oh, I actually really need to hear that today, or I need something to relate to today. And I think that's why it's also so addictive. And I think that's for some people. I think for other people on TikTok, you get addicted to, like we talked about, you know, people just kind of with their clothes off and shaking their ass and a lot of dumb shit that just waste your time. I think it's both. My algorithm is, I always find it to be very meaningful. I'm always learning something, which can also be addictive and kind of waste your time if you're always learning over and over and over again and you forget a bunch of it because you've watched so many different videos, right? But it can still be very valuable. And I think I've actually learned a lot and connected with people through TikTok like you,
Yeah, of
right?
course. That's how we met.
So our conversation right now is actually proof of what a community building platform is versus like Facebook or Twitter or anything like that.
And then I do think that the future of addiction through social media network is success. Like when the algorithms work autonomously to help that person solve their dreams and goals, or to help them recognize those dreams and goals sooner. That's what's missing right now.
That's the power of it though. Real connection, right? Now a lot of these platforms are just based off of them thinking about money first and not doing the right thing first, right? But people like you are thinking about the power of doing the right thing and connecting people to achieve success in their dreams. And then you might figure out ways to have another win-win situation like you have with FreeWater, right? Where you're still profitable while doing the right thing. Everything I believe is flipped backwards and you're bringing it the correct way. And I see a lot of good people rising up and starting to do things like that. And I do believe the future, if we aren't wiped out by a nuke or AI or something terrible, like, you know, some catastrophic Black Mirror
or AI using
AI using nukes, yeah, some Terminator, you know, crazy shit.
Yeah.
That I believe the future will be overwhelmingly positive because I believe that because of people rising on social media of good character, inspiring people to do the right thing, more and more people are going out and fulfilling their dreams and making a living off the internet as it evolves. Yeah. So I also wanted to ask you, when you first discovered FreeWater, when you first had the idea of FreeWater, did you know almost right away that this is your purpose? I know you said it took you about like 100 days or so where you felt that guilt, but like when you first had that thought, was like some intuition in the back of your mind, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I know this is like the path.
I don't know if we discussed this on the first show or just on our phone calls, but before there was FreeWater, there was FreeTaxi. Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't.
Okay. So for my 30th birthday, I was, you know, out of the army at 29. I was battling really bad PTSD. I really needed to get out of my environment. And since I've always been a world traveler, I was like, now's the time to do a trip around the world. And my initial goal was 100 countries in 4 years. And
Oh, wow.
yep. And I was gone. And within the first 15 countries of that trip, even less, I had learned more about myself and the world in those first like 6 months than like my whole 30-year existence before that. But on top of all that wisdom, I learned that I really hate taxi drivers because it didn't matter if I'm in like Hong Kong or wherever, London or wherever. The moment that they find out that you're not from around there, they like jack up the price on the meter. And not just meter price. Like I was in the Middle East, and what they do is you've got your bags in the trunk, and when they pull over, even though you agreed like the ride's going to be $50 to the airport, they're going to be like, "Look, I've got all your bags and belongings in the trunk. You got to give me $200 right now, or I'm holding it hostage. There's nothing you could do. If you step out of the car, I'm going to drive away."
Really?
And so like when you're traveling the world, like you start keeping like your phone and your wallet in your front pocket, and you start becoming very keen on like all the scams out there, right? And you start reading about people's scams because you don't want to get scammed anymore. And so when I finally made it to Europe, it was made, it was 2015. Uber had finally just scaled to Europe. It was a brand new phenomenon. And I was like, finally, like Uber is here. And now I have a set price on my phone. Nobody could rip me off on the meter. And it seemed so innocent. And so I was in Budapest, Hungary, and I think this is like July of 2015. And I was on my way to one of the biggest music festivals in Europe called Sziget, a Hungarian name, but like 500,000 people go there all the time, every year. And the Uber driver pulled over and tried to rob me with a knife.
Really? Shit.
And I won't
How
talk
how did that
about
happen in the car? Can you explain
the Uber
like you're in the
driver.
back
Like we
seat
were on
and
our way to
then
the music festival, and about a mile or two away, pulled over and just pulls out a Crocodile Dundee knife and it's just like, hey, like give me all your money and stuff.
did he like lean backwards towards you and put the knife like to
Yeah,
you
it's
or
like turns
just pulled it and
around,
held it
just
and
like,
yeah, just
yeah,
turn around and put it at you? Wow.
yeah. Puts the knife on me and stuff. And I won't say what I said, but I just reasoned with the person and just said, look, like you do realize I used the app and the police are gonna know exactly what happened. And eventually they realized like, yeah, I'm fucking stupid. Like they used an app. What am I gonna do here, right? And then I got out of the Uber when I got out of that situation, and I walked like the last mile or two to the music festival, and I was so pissed off. And at that moment, like all of the anger of all of the taxi drivers who had harassed me on that trip and ripped me off and like ransomed my bags, and now the Uber driver, I was like, fuck Uber, fuck the taxis. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm going to put them all out of business by opening the world's first free taxi company called FreeTaxi. And Elon Musk will make the self-driving cars for me. I'm just going to figure out a way to create an innovative advertising platform to cover those costs. And during my trip, I spent like 1 to 3 hours a day working on this. And within a few weeks, I had already solved it. But what I realized is, and this was kind of the most epic part of the journey, free wasn't good enough because there was no moat, there was no water around the castle. Like if I found success, what's preventing Uber, Toyota, Tesla, or anyone from just copying me? So since these are all publicly traded companies, I started superficially examining like the chassis, the infrastructure of their business models and their financials. And I realized the opportunity is going negatively priced because if I found a way somehow to make my free taxi profitable beyond negative 110, 115% off, those companies were so inefficient that they could not win that long-term war. And so the goal was, I'm going to figure out how to make free taxi negative 150, negative 160 off. And if I fall short at negative 120, I'm in the clear. And within a few more weeks, I figured out how to make it like negative 175% off, but profitable. Then a couple weeks later, I happened to meet a couple of refugees in Rome. And their story was so sad, it compelled me to cancel my trip around the world. And I started this nonprofit organization. And I was still working on my free taxi, and at that point, free flights and free electricity. Those were my first three free concepts. But now, speaking with these refugees, it was double eye-opening because 3/4 of these people expressed that they had left their country because of USA's wars. And I was expecting that, right? All of them said my house got bombed to the ground. Now I have no home. Here I am walking to a new country trying to rebuild my life. But then it was that 25% of the other people who had expressed, you know what, I left my country because I didn't have water or food. That started opening my eyes towards the global water crisis and global famine. But I was still so pissed off at the taxis and Ubers that I was like, I'm going to do free water and free food after free taxi, free flights. But also the way I looked at it is I believe personally, whether you agree or not, a lot of our wars are unjust and they're all fought over oil anyways. So I was like, if I can make electricity free, that could prevent all of our wars. And so I was working on, and then I volunteered for 18 months, actually met my wife while volunteering. We got married. I stopped working on all my cookie free ideas and we moved to a different country. We're living in Montenegro. And at that time, about 9 months into it, Elon was like, came up on my newsfeed, like, oh, the cars are going to be driving themselves soon, which they still aren't. But like, I was like, you know what? If I don't work on my free taxi, free flights, and free electricity ideas now, it's going to pass me up. And so, and that at that moment was when I got the laptop, taught myself these things. But very quickly, I realized you might not want ads on your Tesla or BMW. BMWs look great. Do you really want Nike swooshes on that or Airbnb logos? So on the journey of figuring out ways to make your Tesla or Beamer free without putting ads on the packaging or on the car, that's actually when I realized I could make everything free and negatively priced. And then I was filming a commercial for FreeTaxi. I had a camera guy, my old friend Zach, and we were in like Times Square. We're at like West Coast, East Coast, college campuses, you name it. Like, hey, Michael, with a microphone, would you take a ride in a free taxi? And then the camera guy is like, dude, like, I need something to drink. We were in Times Square, New York City. And that's when I saw a box of boxed water is better for the first time. Same packaging we use right here. And I looked, have you seen the brand before or not?
Which brand is it?
Boxed water is better is their name.
Mm-mm.
It's the ugliest logo you've ever seen in your life. And I was looking and I was like, what a fucking ugly logo.
Wait, is the one you've shown? I think I've seen you show it, maybe.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
an
okay,
ugly logo. And like, they're only utilizing like a fraction of the real estate. I was like, why would you? Because like right here, it just says hello, because they didn't know
yeah,
it was
yeah.
right there. And I was like, why would you waste your real estate? And why would you have that ugly of a logo when you could print anything? And then my mind started working and I was like, yeah, wait, we've had the missing people on the milk carton since the 50s. So like for 60 plus years, you could print photo quality images of people. It's got to be better printing capabilities now. And then I felt my phone in my pocket and I was like, wait a minute. Every phone has a built-in QR code reader and NFC chip scanner. I could literally bring anything to life with augmented reality. And then I remembered the stories from the refugees, like I didn't have water. And so when I went home and I talked to my late mother, I was like, Mom, what do I do? Like, I'm really passionate about free taxi and free flights and free electricity, but now I saw the opportunity for free water. Like, what's your thoughts? She was like, Josh, like, you're never going to be successful at free taxi. Like, I don't know how to break this to you, but you're not famous and we're middle class. Like, we're not rich. Like, how the fuck are you going to get a car company to guinea pig with? Like, Toyota's not going to let you, like, hey, here's 1,000 cars, go make them free. And big oil or big coal or renewable energy is not going to give me a utility to prove that I could make the electricity free or negatively priced. She's like, you're going to fail if you do these things. However, a middle class person does have the ability to start a beer company, like a micro beer brewery or a farm or something within your availability and capabilities at this time. If you could prove it with free water or free beer or free potatoes first, that economic model, negatively priced and profitable, then maybe, just maybe, people will listen to you on like negatively priced cars, electricity, and more. And she's like, by the way, like, if you gave everybody on Earth a ride in a free taxi that drove itself, how many lives would you save? I'm like, 1.4 million lives a year. That's like an Elon number that I just memorized. It's like, how many lives would you save if you made water, food, and medicine free for everybody on Earth? I'm like, God, I don't fucking know. And so then I started trying to research it, and it's like at least 50 million. And she's like, look, I think you found your answer. Like, you got to do something that's possible within a middle class person's reach, but also take the more meaningful route. And so I pivoted from those free things, the free water business models, the free electricity and taxi business model, dumbed down 99%. But I also have a clear roadmap on how to start here and make those ones free or negatively priced later, and here we are.
That's a really incredible story, Josh. Um, so many points I want to go off of, but like, first off, that's really cool. You had a mother that actually sat down, listened to you, and gave you amazing advice
The
that
best
changed your
advice,
course to
better
do.
than like any venture capitalist or anyone could have given.
That's amazing. That's you know, bless her. That's I know she passed recently, and sounds like a very good mom. Very nice that you had that. Um, that's also amazing that you had to have all those experiences in order for this to happen. And you really could have only connected the dots afterwards. And I see that pattern with all great, successful visionaries. And that's just amazing. And I also want to share, speaking of taxi drivers, when I was in summer of 6th grade, my first time I went to New York, my mom's boyfriend at the time was an optometrist, and he had a convention he had to go to in New York. So we went with him in my transport chair. I was little, so they're able to like pick me up and move me and stuff. So after we went to the hotel, right when we got there, we dropped off our luggage. We were going to go in another cab and go out somewhere. So it was going to be like the first real cab I ever take in New York City. And so I transfer in to the cab. My sister gets in the back seat with me on the other side next to me. And then my mom is by the trunk with her boyfriend, putting the wheelchair in the trunk. Now, the taxi driver was on his phone doing something, wasn't paying attention. Okay. And then all of a sudden, he saw in the rearview mirror that they're putting a wheelchair in the trunk. And he freaks out, realizes I'm handicapped. And he's like, no, I don't accept people like you. And I'm like, what? He's like, get the fuck out of my cab right now. And he's screaming on the top of his lungs, panicking, like flailing his arms, just pointing back at me. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. He had like he had some superstition about handicapped people. I don't know. There's a lot of different religions and cultures. I've dealt with this stuff all my whole life.
Yeah.
But this one was particularly interesting because, and the bellhop was next to us too, right? Or the person that helps, right, with like hailing cabs and stuff for a hotel. And so he's watching all this happen, and he told my mom, he was like, oh, wait, what's going on? And then her boyfriend saw what was happening too. And so they're trying to take it out, the wheelchair out of the trunk. And then he takes a gun out of the glove compartment. My sister starts screaming. She runs out of the cab, and he points it at my forehead and says, get the fuck out right now. And my mom's boyfriend at the time, swooped me out and plopped me in the chair, and the bellhop called 911, and he sped away. And so that was my first experience
So if that would have happened
cab.
to you, if that would have happened to you at your current age, maybe you would have been so pissed where you're like, I'm gonna try to all taxis free, and then
Yeah.
you would be, we would be completely reversed, and you would be the FreeWater guy. And
Yeah.
it just happened to you. It just happened to you a couple decades too soon, I guess.
Yeah. That was it just reminded me of that. So yeah, I wanted to ask you also, like, do you almost feel like a spiritual connection with your work? Like this is another level all meant to be, and with all the people you're helping, and can you almost feel the future of all the people that you are helping and how this is meant to be in a way?
I think in one person's life, I don't believe like in the whole thing that Elon said, like the simulation, oh, it's like a 30 whatever percent chance that we're like living in a video game sort of thing. But on that note, I do think in one person's life, regardless of the tools you were born with, one person could go like an infinite number of paths, at least a million, right? And I think that some of those paths are more limiting than others, right? I'm not saying there's a right way and a wrong way, but like looking back, like in your moments before you're about to die, you could probably see like, I could have done things a righter way, or I wish I would have made some decisions differently. And so
Do you believe in a multiverse almost? You think a
I think
multiverse is
a
possible and there's like
multiverse
other
within
Joshes?
within yourself.
Okay.
And so only in this one circumstance of like me, all these things happening where I start conjuring up these like free and negatively priced models. Only in the circumstance of me feeling tremendously guilty because I don't want to work on it and it can save tens of millions of lives and help the environment, would I have had the balls to work as hard as I did, overcome these fears and learn the things and continue to learn and like break myself down on a daily basis and build myself up on a daily basis constantly. Never would I do this for any other purpose other than really trying to impact the lives and the environment the way that I am. I could never be that Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg who became a billionaire just to be a billionaire. I'd be that guy on the beach living in Spain, just teaching myself how to play the guitar, something I've always wanted to do, or the piano, which I've never done yet. Um, yeah, like now, like some people are like, oh, you're like the next Steve Jobs or whatever. And I appreciate the way they're saying it because I know they mean well. I just want to be me. And only in this one opportunity of really trying to make impactful change would I have chose this route in my life of the millions of possibilities. It wouldn't be possible otherwise because everyone's saying, oh, you're doing the impossible. You invented the impossible. Not a second would that be possible without me being able to recognize that you could really change the system from the inside out and help these people. And, if that does that make sense at all?
Do you feel like you were almost guided to have certain experiences for you to have the realization that you can do this with your character because you would make this choice? If enough things happen to you where you realize, oh, I really can help people, and with your morals and values that you have inside of you and your character, that you would have to make that decision because of the type of person you are.
Yes and no, because if you know a little bit more about my story, it's not my first free endeavor. When I was 10 years old, we had a lemon tree in front of our house. I was that kid selling lemonade. And one day I had the idea, what if I made a free lemonade sign? Because no one was coming and buying my 50 cents lemonade. And next thing there was like cars lined up around the block. And I couldn't like squeeze the lemons fast enough. And so I ran inside and got all my baseball, basketball, football cards. And I had some really good ones back in those days, like Michael Jordan's second year card. And I sold them and made more than $1,000 off of my free lemonade stand in one weekend. And then I happened to be watching a show in the 90s, like a week later, called Family Matters with this guy, Steve Urkel. And in that episode, he invented a time machine and the neighbor stole it and invested in Microsoft and became the richest person on earth. And I watched that episode. I had the $1,000 or more. And I was looking in the living room and we had like a home computer, which I never used, but my brother loved it, an older brother. And I was like, wow, everyone's going to want a computer. And I nagged my parents for 6 months until they let me invest that money. Plus my grandma matched like my grand with her grand. And I turned that investment into like 37 grand by the time I was in the ninth grade. And because I invested at 10 years old in the stock market, now at 38, I have 28 years stock market experience. So some could say like, yeah, like, your first free idea, it transpired into this or that. But like, I think that if you knew me like in high school and if you knew me now, you'd be like, that guy has completely changed. I'll be the
Right. But
first one to
I've found, sorry to interrupt you, but first off, so you've always been an entrepreneur at heart, always.
Yeah,
That
but what I
is
was gonna say
who you
was like
are.
when I was younger, I was a total piece of shit. And maybe that was just because I was young. Um, and
You mean
like
at
I
high school
told
age or even earlier?
junior high, high school, in my early to mid 20s, um, like can like look, like looking back and like looking in the mirror, like I was a total shitbag in many ways. Where like I had to go back and like erase all my old Facebook posts when this started taking off, because I was like, you know what, like I don't want to be judged for me like 15 years ago, Josh. But like I've completely taken a completely different different course. And like I don't think like earlier Josh would take that risk, or like with all the things, like long story short, to answer your question, like the old me in my 20s, for example, not in a million years, because I was too selfish or too close-minded.
But the kid, it sounds like the only reason I'm saying this is because I recognize it in myself. When I was a kid, I had all these beliefs and just being an unstoppable person. And I knew all the things I was meant to accomplish. And then as I got through junior high and high school and college and got worn down by just all the shit life, puts on you, I changed and was kind of more closed minded a little bit. And I wasn't my old younger self where I was just so open. And I think that happens to most people, right? Like you're a kid, you're open to all these possibilities and you just try things. You have an idea like a free lemonade stand or something like that. And if you have the means to do it, you do it. And then over time, the world kind of tells you you can't do all this shit, and it kind of changes your personality. And then you come out the other end through maturity, through your, I think, mid 20s and later, and you become kind of more of your kid self again. Like you turn back to that person and you reflect on the person you kind of transformed into. You're like, oh, I didn't like what I was there for a little while you're developing. And then you kind of integrate who you used to be as a kid. And you're like, oh, I can achieve all these dreams I had. I can, I have all these possibilities still inside me. So I recognize in myself and I kind of hear that in you that, yeah, you did some things you might have regretted, as we all do. But I think you've always been that person, that heart, that good soul. If that makes sense.
Yeah, look, I feel the same way, because if you would have met 10-year-old Josh investing in Microsoft and really excited seeing like my free lemonade stand money like going to the moon during the 1995 tech rush before the bubble burst. If you would have asked me back then, I would have told you I'd be like the next CEO of Microsoft or Apple. But then in my 20s, no, I was just a personal trainer. Not just like, because I don't want to put anything negative on that, but did not have the aspirations that I had, as that kid. But on my 22nd birthday, I actually went through a very big character transformation, because I realized and recognized that I had imposed so many glass ceilings upon myself and had so many fears. I was like, I'm going to face all of my fears this year. Like I was the pickiest eater in the world. Like I wouldn't eat
Same.
bananas, eggs, there's like a list of 100 things. I was scared to like do things on my own, travel on my own. I had a fear of heights. I had a fear of like deep water stuff. I started jumping out of planes. I was scared of girls. I'm like, I'm gonna go on a million dates. I was scared to get in fights and get beat up. So I was like, I'm gonna volunteer to go spar at every boxing and kickboxing gym, and just got my ass kicked 100 fucking times in a row. Like, because after the first time, when I was like, I probably need to get beat up another 99 times just so I could tell myself it wasn't a fluke. And I stood up against my fear. But after my 22nd, everything on that list, I knocked out in like 4, 5, 6 months. And then after that, then I really opened my mind to like, what are the other possibilities? And I got rid of my personal training business. I bought a 1985 Toyota RV and I traveled around America for like a year and a half. And then during that time, I got into photography and videography, things that I always wanted to do, but was insecure about it for whatever reason. Didn't think it was cool, and then little by little, then I was like, like I've always wanted to see if I could be like a Navy SEAL or something. And that's when I enlisted in the Army. Then I got hurt. Then I was like really down in the dumps afterwards. I really struggled with mental health horribly. And then I went on this trip around the world, and like Like there was like from the age of 22 until the age of 32, which at end of my 32nd year was when I started working on my crazy free things full time. Like in that 10 years was like a complete transformation of what I thought was possible, what I thought wasn't possible. Um, when I if I finished my 5-year contract in the army, my goal was right after that to break the Guinness Book World Record of the fastest person by themselves to walk from the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole. And you have to drag your own equipment that's like hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And I'm scared of the cold. And so that was my goal at like the age of like 33 to break that record. And that was one of the reasons why I was so horribly depressed, because now I had all these fractures in my spine and in my neck and in my leg. And what am I gonna do? And so like right when I thought like from here it was only like trajectory to the moon, then I went back lower than I'd ever been in my whole life, and then had to like slowly build myself back up. And here it is.
I mean, first off, that's a really incredible story. And I think that's how it, for all men who seek achieving great things, I think that's the way it goes. I think that you do have extreme highs and ups, and you realize the potential, and you answer to the call of adventure, and then everything comes crashing down. You get into it absolutely the worst, lowest point you could ever be at. And then you have the opportunity to rebuild yourself and become extremely resilient and the strongest you've ever been, and then achieve things even greater than you thought, right?
And
that's
then
clearly
it'll
what
come crashing
happened.
down again, and then you got to
Yeah,
start
and
from
up
scratch
and
again.
down
So
and up and down.
we happen to be doing this podcast at the moment where things are going up, but I understand that just as fast, and eventually, look, like we don't live forever. Like like the while right now, like I'm really happy with everything going on. Like just as easily you could wake up and the doctor could be like, oh, you got cancer. Or like when I was at home in LA the other week, my best friend got in a motorcycle accident. He lost his leg. And like, he was out cold. I visited him in the hospital. It was really eye-opening, where I was like, fuck, like one of my closest friends could pass away right now. I thought he was dead when I pulled up on the scene. Hope he doesn't listen to this later. But what I realized in this whole experience of watching it was actually how badass my friend's wife is. She actually is like the commander of an Air Force base, really high ranking. And I don't think everybody who commands a military base deserves to be there. She definitely is the type of person, like if the world was coming to an end, like you would actually want the ball to be in her court. And I
Mhm.
never really recognized that until like I saw her husband like leg chopped off in the road the other day, like in a pool of blood, and like the steadiest hand you've ever seen. And after like realizing my friend's gonna live, after like, visiting him in the hospital and so on and so forth, on the flight back to Austin from LA, I was like, I got to take two things out of this experience. Number one, life is short. I always knew that. And I got to keep pushing my boundaries. Number two, like I thought I was a good leader, and she completely just fucking blows me out of the water. And I'm just like, you know what? Like I gotta try to be more like Marie. And I gotta, remind myself even in the most stressful moments, like my leg's not chopped off like her husband's was, and that she was just like ice cold, like cool as can be in the worst situation you could be in. And I'm looking in the mirror like, I gotta fucking up my game, like.
Yeah. Well, first off, that shows you like, yeah, you recognize we do live in a world of duality, right? With the ups and downs. You can't have light without the darkness. You can't have darkness without the light. And I think people forget that. And people forget how easily something like losing your leg can happen, or dying, or cancer, or especially with all the chemicals we talked about, like on the last podcast, that we consume on a daily basis through everything we
Everything.
encounter. Um, that is tragic, but I'm sure your friend, I know for myself, with all my disabilities and all the things I've been through, like, you know, waking up every day with all your bones dislocated after a while is like, yeah, I'm kind of tired of this. But I still, even after now, after I still have my downs, you know, I still have my days that are just absolutely, you know, horrific and hard to get through, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. All the things I've learned at the age of 25, having to rebuild myself with no, my experience, I think, has been, you know, some people have help who are handicapped, especially in America and stuff, but for the most part, I've always been on my own. And I think it's been very powerful, and it's important for people to learn resilience and to keep rebuilding themselves. And I think handicapped people who are born with it, and even more sometimes specifically people who have a tragedy occur to them, it might take them a while, but they'll eventually realize I'm actually way better off because I've had to experience things like this. And you become eventually grateful for what you first believe are your curses. And I think that's a big lesson to learn in life, is to believe that all the curses you feel put upon you are actually blessings in disguise. And when you embrace your curses, I believe that's when you can change the world. Like even you felt like, oh God, this is almost like a curse. I know I can change the world and help millions of people, but it's going to take so much work. And you put it off for a while, and then you came back and you're like, actually, I'm kind of grateful for this idea and all the good I can do. I'm a good person. I'm going to go after it and do it.
I would say you got it right on the nail, other than the grateful for coming up with the idea part, because when I first attempted to go after it, the first thing I tried to do was I tried to like cold email the Mark Cubans, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk's, like the Bill Gates Foundation, whatever. And what I didn't know then, which I know now, I learned this during the pandemic, is I've got horrible dyslexia. I didn't recognize it at that point. I didn't know. I was never diagnosed, but it's why I'm really poor at reading and writing. And so I emailed those people, which they never opened in the first place. But let's just imagine they did. Let's be wishful thinkers and be like, you know, like a Mark Cuban or Bill Gates opened up my email, which they didn't. If they did, they're just like, who the fuck is this guy who can't even spell and has improper grammar, and he's telling me like he's created things that are gonna uplift humanity? Like, obviously they never opened that email, but if they did, they obviously just laughed at me and then deleted it. And when I couldn't give away the idea, at that point, I was just like, I have to find a way to do it on my own.
Right. But you did. You did do it. You did do it. And that's the most important part. But that is pretty funny to think about. Like, you know, Elon Musk go, like, what the fuck is all this? You know, Mark Cuban. I know Mark Cuban will be like, what is this?
Like they
you know,
never
all
opened
misspelled
it.
and
Yeah, Mark Cuban is
one day
famous.
one day they might open it and be like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I wish I did read this misspelled, you know,
If any of them
email.
did, it would be Mark Cuban, I think, because he's famous, at least supposedly famous, for like just answering random emails and responding to them. But even
Oh,
if
really?
he did, which he didn't, like he looked at that email I wrote and was just like, this guy is like clinically insane and has the writing abilities of like a seventh grader.
That's so cool. You had that disability, or have, right? And you've learned how to use it to your advantage and overcome it, and you know, and be stronger because of it, right?
Well, what happened was during the pandemic, I was speaking to a woman, I don't remember who it was, and I had made a comment that I had personally never read a book before, cover to cover. And she was just like, you have really bad dyslexia. And I was just like, knee jerk, like, fuck you. Like, nothing's wrong with me. And she was like, whoa, whoa, don't take offense. Like, I'm just telling you, like, go in your own time. And there's a bunch of tests on the internet that you could take in the comfort of your own home and see for yourself. And I went through like 20 of those tests, and they're all just like, yes. And it didn't, there's multiple types of dyslexia. A lot of people don't know a lot about it. Some people see things that are different. Like you look at, like, horribly, you might see, like, look at something and it might look like it's gobbledygook. um other people in my camp, you have such bad like ADHD that I'll read a paragraph or two, and then after that, I'm just totally lost in my own thoughts. Like I'll come back to reality, and I'll even be like, wow, I attempted to read 3 pages and retained absolutely zero of anything. Um, but what I'm really good at doing better than anyone I've ever met, like in at least startup world or business world, is I could examine their business model and dissect it into layers that other people don't see for one reason or another. And then I could be like, like a lot of the shit you're doing is folklore. It's done because you just copied other people and without question. And you could throw 90% of that in the trash and your business won't change. You're just wasting time and money. But over here in left field, you've got these opportunities that you've never considered. And I think that's actually like the pot of gold. And
So do you think it's because you're really interested in that one kind of thing, but the other stuff you were reading, like for school or whatever, you weren't interested in and couldn't
I
focus
never,
on
well,
maybe?
I that has a lot to do with it. I'm unable to do busy work. And a lot of school is busy work for better or for worse. And also, like the only times I've ever like completed a book end to end was when people read it out loud in class. But by
Hmm.
the time I was in junior high, I was just ditching school and smoking weed every day. Like I wasn't ever present a lot of the times if I was there, or just I was ditching school anyways to finish any books. And right before this, I had a meeting with a financial advisor from the Middle East, and they were just like, I've listened to a lot of your live streams on TikTok, and I personally think that you wouldn't have been able to invent the things you've invented if you had that formal education, paid attention in school. Um, at one point, he said, and my wife says the same thing, like something you would have read would prevent you from going this route because you would just be like, it just goes against everything you've ever read. Like, don't even bother.
Hmm. But that,
And
so that doesn't that show you that what you thought was your disability, what you thought was a curse, ended up being the thing that saved you. That's your superpower, right?
could be.
Mm.
It really could be. So you never know. I mean, or it could
Yeah,
just be because I'm trying really hard, or the combination of both, you
I
know.
think it's a culmination of everything coming together, you know. And I know for me when I was younger, I kind of had a similar issue, but also I didn't know that. I guess I have so many problems with my eyes because your eyes are connective tissue as well. I've had 8 eye surgeries. I used to be legally blind and all that stuff till I was 20. And then I had all these surgeries and I can see now, but I see 3 of everything all the time. Very complicated case. But back then when I was legally blind, if I held like a book this close, I could like see it for the most part, so I can kind of read. Um, so I'd read all the books I was supposed to, but after, a page or half a page, I would fall asleep. And I would always thought, what is happening to me? I thought I was just dumb or I couldn't read or whatever. What was happening to me was my eyes would cross over each other. It's called double vision. And all it would take is like to have a prism in your glasses, and that allows your vision to focus properly. Because with double vision, I guess the way my eyes are formed is light hits my retina in different places, so it can't focus correctly, and it makes you pass out. So I just thought I always couldn't like read. It was just a simple issue, and no one thought of it. Not one optometrist thought of it until like I guess 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Better late than
Just
never, I guess.
and, yeah, and it wasn't even a doctor I had. Sally, my mom's boyfriend, who actually saved me from the gun in the car. They weren't together at this time, but he passed away relatively recently. But one of the last things he thought of before he died was, "Hey, did Michael ever get like a prism in his glasses? He's an optometrist." And we're like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, it'll fix." Because we told him he's having these issues. He's like, "That'll fix the issue." And then, so he thought of it. And I mean, I've been to the best people you can go to around here for, eye surgeries and everything you could think of for medical stuff. Not one person fixed it. I've even had people get my prescription after my surgeries wrong 100%. So after I had all these surgeries to fix my vision, I could see technically 20/20, but I still needed some correction. They gave me, and this is like one of the best people in Oregon, who's supposed to be for severe cases. gave me a prescription that I used for 2 years that was only for reading this close, which is basically blinding me again.
Yeah.
And I went back to her 3 times claiming, this is not the right prescription. She said, I assure you, there's no way this is wrong. I go to someone else because I didn't trust it. They're like, this is not even close. Here's what it should be. And I got it. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Jesus. Some people are just, yeah, that's the.
But at
All
least
right. Well,
at least you fixed it now.
yeah, I know. At least I can. It's weird. I see 3 of everything. So I see 3. There's called ghosting, and it's for different reasons in my eyes. But I see basically kind of 3 images of you right now.
Are they all
It's
the same shadowing or not?
so in my right eye, it's usually up and to the right. It's like almost a staircase image. So up and slight to the right. In my left eye, it's down and to the left. And then my left eye has been getting worse. So that one, I kind of see almost 3 images in that eye. The original, down to the left, and up and to the left. So
I
I'm
guess
seeing almost more than
since
3
we're
now.
talking about it, I have
I had
to
another surgery recently to try and fix the one on the right. Helped a little bit, but it's, it is what it is.
talking about it, I have to ask, what's your take on
Oh, I
Neuralink?
can't hear you.
Would you do
Oh shit!
Neuralink?
I think my AirPods died. Hold on.
Oh,
There we go.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so I have to ask because we're talking about it. Like, would you do Neuralink, and do you think that that would correct this? Because I tell my wife all the time, I know right now it's for people who are gonna like, they're paralyzed, but now they're gonna walk. But I told her I want it right now. She doesn't like that, but I personally want it because I believe the first person that puts like that Apple Watch in their brain and it has full like Google search capabilities, that person is just gonna like take over the world in a heartbeat.
It'll be
So
like movie Limitless with Bradley
yeah,
Cooper.
kind of. So like
Uh,
you don't want version 3.0 because by then it's too late, but you also don't want to be maybe the first person in version 1.0, like the
mhm.
very first version where it's like, okay, it's working and safe. Like I want that one, even if it's going to be like that much bigger than version 3, which is what do you
I
think?
don't. I don't know if I would do it. First off, I don't know if it could help me
Well,
because
you said you're
my.
in a lot of pain, and if it automatically just cut off all the pain sensors, and then if it straightened that out, like would that, if you were no longer in pain, obviously you're not going to just like be running in a marathon tomorrow or something, but if you're no longer in pain and if it only solved that one thing.
If it was only in pain, I still don't think I would do it. I don't
uh,
think I'd do it. I would have to make me able to walk or completely fix my vision somehow. But I just don't. Maybe through CRISPR someday there could be something
if it did pain
to be
and
done, but
completely solved your vision like that, would you go?
maybe,
Okay.
maybe it completely solve my vision. Maybe. It is troublesome and a little worrying that you can be hacked and mind controlled, and that dystopia possibility is a little. But I agree with you. What are we going to do? All of us who choose not to do it are going to be left in the dust. Like, and Elon says the only way forward is to merge with technology, which is called transhumanism, right? And which Ray Kurzweil has talked about forever. And
There's one company that has like a bicycle helmet. They're like, yeah, for the people who don't want to get the chip, you'll wear like the Professor X helmet sort of thing, or like the Jean Grey sort of helmet.
well, the Professor
But,
X thing would fit me. That would work perfectly. I'll roll around and I'll
but
be
like,
Professor X.
yeah. Okay, just had to ask because we were talking about it.
Yeah, no. I mean, I try to be as positive as I can for technology. And I'm well aware of the risks. And I think, as many people talk about technology, you need to regulate, like, unlike what happened with social media where they didn't regulate first, you need to regulate beforehand, before it's too late with this kind of stuff.
Of
But you're
course.
always going to have bad actors that will work independently to do terrible things. And the thing is, just like with cops, right? Cops have more power than traditional people in other professions. But there's bad people in every facet of life, every profession. But when there's a bad, corrupt cop, the consequences are much more dire because of the power they possess due to the nature of their position. Same kind of thing with this kind of technology. Just the nature of it is making people way more vulnerable and susceptible to catastrophic consequences. So I think we need to be really wary of the way this all happens. But human nature is just like, all right, it came out, new technology, everyone, let's do it real quick.
Yeah,
But
of
you make
course.
a good point. If you don't do it real quick, then you're left in the dust. And then what are you going to do? And
Or
then
if you
AI
do
is
it
going to take
too
over
quickly,
jobs and you need UBI.
or if you do
And
it too quickly and it's not necessarily the tech speed, but maybe it gets you sick somehow, or that's also the problem with being too early of an adopter. Like,
right.
you know, the first like watch with a light had like uranium in it or something.
Did it
And,
really?
well, yeah, those people didn't do very well.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, totally.
I know we've been going for a long time. Our conversations really flow. This feels like a couple minutes to me.
Where are we at time-wise right now, Michael?
About an hour 53.
Okay, cool, cool. Just wondering.
Do you want to keep going or you want to kind of close it out
We'll
soon?
go a little bit more. Like I said, dude, I'm always available to do it. I just always want to be mindful and respectful of your time and your aspirations and your journey. Like I would do a podcast with you every Friday if you wanted. Like I just love hanging out with you. So like
I love hanging out with you too. I mean, I wish I could come to Austin. I trust me, I want to. I mean, to hang out with you, number one, but also that's the comedy capital of the world right now.
it is.
Any comedian who is serious about comedy
I
goes
can
to Austin, Texas.
I understand the logistics of you getting out here would be a nightmare. If you ever do, through my other buddy, also named Josh, I not sure if things changed because now I believe Rogan opened up his own place, but before he did, that guy Josh got me free tickets to the Rogan show. And he was like, if you ever have any special person in town, ask me and I'll get you guys tickets.
That would be
Maybe
awesome.
maybe it changed now that he opened up his own spot. But look, if you came in town, even if I had to, I would buy the freaking tickets just so you could go.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet. Yeah, that would be fun if we all go together and just that would be awesome. Have you ever heard of Kill Tony?
No, I'm not really big in the comedy world or
Okay.
um I'm not big in a lot of things right now just because all I do is work and have no life. Like my friends are back home, like, did you watch the Dodger game? Or I'm just like, no, did you watch the Super Bowl? Like, I don't even know who's in it. Do you this,
Yeah.
that? Right now I'm just like lost in the world of free and negatively priced commodities. And that's all that I do and live. In
Yeah,
this
you're
world,
focused.
like in this world, I am like the Luke Skywalker. And in all these other things, like I am garbage.
That's really good though. The only reason I know about this stuff is because while I'm editing, I'll put on a podcast, and you know that happens to also be my profession. Besides doing my podcast and stuff, I'll listen to comedy stuff, and so I keep up with it. But yeah, Kill Tony is Tony Hinchcliffe hosts this podcast thing where it's an open mic essentially. It's at Rogan's Club currently, the Comedy Mothership, and you go up and you do a minute of stand up, and then there's three professional comedians there or more sometimes, and sometimes Rogan's on the panel and they'll talk to you, give you advice, or roast you if you did terrible and bomb. And I would be really cool if I can get it up and do a minute of stand up there.
Yeah, no,
But I don't
totally.
even know if it's handicapped accessible. That's the thing. Because I saw on Instagram there's this long staircase to get on stage, and it says it's a long way to the top if you want to walk and not walk. Walk and roll is my podcast. Rock and roll.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. I couldn't tell you. That one Rogan show was the first and only time so far I've been to a comedy show.
really,
Um,
ever?
ever. I've never really watched him on TV, like it never really interested me. I did like Dave Chappelle's show back when, so like I guess that would be a
Okay.
difference. But I didn't know how I felt about it because I saw like obviously Rogan came last and there was, you know, 5+ people that showed before him. I do remember always like, you know, I know a lot of comedy is based on like making fun of yourself,
Mhm.
making fun of others. Either they're in the crowd in front of you or other people. I didn't know how to feel when a lot of it was making fun of people of heavily marginalized groups. Um, After it, I actually went out and like in my own circles, like spoke to some of the people in those marginalized groups to ask how they felt about it. They really weren't very happy, at least
Really?
their perspective. But I mean, that was their perspective. They said, no, I really don't like how, I'm the center of their jokes. Now on the flip side, I do
Hmm.
see like the comedian's perspective, like freedom of speech is freedom for me to break down whatever boundary I want. And from the comedian's take, I've heard them say like, if you take away my freedom of making fun of whoever the fuck I want, then like we basically, like the Iron Curtain has come down, sort of thing. But I don't know. What's your take on that?
Oh, my take is that it's very, very, very important to make fun of people of every part of the world, every race, gender, sexuality. I think it is absolutely crucial to the fabric of society. And I think that some people are sensitive and get offended, but usually I find those kind of people have something else going on with them, some insecurities that they haven't dealt with that they put onto the comedian when the comedian is usually just joking. I always say the whole purpose of a joke is that, like, what do you say when someone doesn't get you're being sarcastic? You say, I'm joking, as I'm not being serious. The point isn't to offend you. The point is to make you laugh and bring levity to the situation. I have this quote I wrote where I say, I believe God has a dark sense of humor because it brings the darkness to light. And I truly believe that. Like I talk about my disability, as you've heard,
No,
all the time. And
but like, do you think if you weren't born with these disabilities and you were like an Olympian, like four-star gold medal Olympian sort of person, but then became the comedic route, would you still make jokes of people with disabilities? And is it as okay as someone who's got these issues to make fun of themselves and these issues, but in a way that only you can because you personally know it very well?
I think anyone should be able to make jokes about people with disabilities. But I think that I have a very unique perspective they couldn't come up with anyways, because they're not really thinking about it the way I think about it. They can't. I think I own that, and other disabled people. I mean, anyone has their own perspective that they own, and some people like kind of steal jokes or mimic other comedians, and they don't. Just like with businesses that we talk about, they copy your model, and they don't have any really authentic perspective, and they haven't earned it either, and they feel like they deserve everything, and they haven't really gone through the trials that they need to become a well-developed person. Um, I really think comedy is extremely important to. I think Jordan Peterson talks a lot about this. Is you can you can see how tyrannical a society is based on how they treat their jesters, speaking the truth and making fun of people. If someone can't take being made fun of, usually they're a type of a tyrant, or when they got some form of a power, they would be tyrannical because they have insecurities they put on other people and want to control everyone else. And if they don't like it, they can't just brush it off. They're like, I'm offended. I'm going to make this a problem, or shout out, or be a heckler, or later online talk shit online and cancel the comedian. Or, I think most people, I don't mean to like diss your friends or
No, 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 no,
anything, but
no. Look, I want to
I
hear everyone's perspective, and look, like I think the best thing about this country, or what maybe does not exist anymore and is disappearing, is that people from completely different walks of life, political background, ethnicity, whatever, can still be friends. Versus like my wife's from Eastern Europe. If someone's in a different political party, you can't be their friend because if their party gets elected, you lose your job.
what?
Yeah, yeah. In Serbia, a
Wait,
lot of a
say
lot of
that
it,
again? They
like let's say if we were Serbian and we worked at like the power plant or whatever, and your political candidate was in power, and then all of a sudden the other party comes in power, there's a fairly large percentage that we would lose our jobs and be replaced by the people who voted for the other guy. And because of
that's
like,
wild.
yeah,
That's
of course, yeah, of course. So like for people, for two people from different even like political beliefs to like break bread and enjoy like a pizza and a case of beer together, it's actually made nearly impossible because you're like, hey, if the other guy gets elected, I could lose my job. And so my wife recently got her US citizenship. We've been married for a while and we've been here for more than 4 years. But at first, I don't think she understood that when we first moved to America. And we still have this conversation because there's things that her and I will never agree with, and that's great. Everyone needs to have their agreements and disagreements, but I do think she does see that, yeah, in this country, people can be completely different backgrounds, and whether you agree with their beliefs or not, it isn't the same as her country because, like, if she voted for Biden and Trump got elected or whatever, like, she's not going to lose her job,
I mean,
right?
that's another level of keeping people divided to be conquered.
Yeah, of course.
That's
And I don't know what
I'm
percentage
surprised. I've never heard of that. I can't believe I've never heard of that.
Well, I didn't know it until I lived there. I lived in Eastern Europe for 4 years while inventing these things. And I'm not certain what percentage of countries operate that way, but after probably more than half, potentially. And I'm not saying every job is like that, but a lot of, I'm not even sure what percentage, but even if it was 5% of jobs or 3% or 2%, it's enough to keep people like, no way am I going to be friends with that person who believes something different than me.
I wish more people in the United States would hear that. Hopefully, after our podcast, more people will realize how lucky they are that they could be friends with, even if they are angry at the other side. We should all realize we have the potential to reach out and be one. We should be one nation under God, right? We should be indivisible. We should be the whole thing. I mean, still having a two-party system is still crazy, in my opinion. Like, I mean, I'm RFK is running as a Democrat, but he's more center. I think he should have maybe ran as a independent, but I'm hoping he seems like a very common sense, good person, and I hope he can bring the country back together. And I
Definitely works out a lot.
he does he does work out a
I saw
lot.
your video on
He's,
that.
yeah, he looks like he's training to be fucking Batman because he knows what happened to the other two. Like he wants those bullets to bounce off of him.
So just because I met him the other day, met him like 3-4 weeks ago. I met Andrew Yang.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought. Well, you met RFK or Andrew Yang?
Andrew Yang. I met him in
Okay.
person. The place that I work out of, it's like the center of startups in Austin. It's called Capital Factory. And someone said, hey, like, you got to meet Andrew. We got to pick one company to like really give like a one-on-one presentation. You're trying to solve universal basic and income in a unique way. That's what he ran off of. Like, you should meet him. Do you want to meet him? I'm like, yes. And so got to pitch him for like 20 minutes. Like he interrupted my presentation like 2 minutes into it, just started firing off questions. Later, then I got invited to go to this thing like Cocktails with Andrew, which is, it's like a political thing, obviously. Like he's hoping people donate to the Forward Party.
Mm.
Whether I agree with what he's doing or not, I also recently was invited to like a Beto O'Rourke thing, and I heard him speaking, and he was a very just run-of-the-mill politician, like babbling on about shit. Like people, like you could like
He's
ask him a
nonsense. He's a
question,
nonsense
ask him a
person.
question that should be like yes or no, and then it's like a 50-minute answer. And it's like, have you ever seen the movie Billy Madison? It's like they're like, we're all dumber for listening to your answer. And that's like a lot of politicians on both sides. But what I appreciated about
Mm.
meeting and hearing Andrew in person, he's like, look, we're creating the Forward Party, not for anybody. It's for everybody. If you're, and he kept it so open-ended, where he was like, whether you're very left, very right, or very centered, if you're unhappy with government for any reason, you should join. If you think that politicians can do better, join. If you think that government can do better, join. That was pretty much what he said. And like he left it like completely open-ended because he could have been like, oh no, I'm just going to be the left's party, or oh, I'm just going to be the right's party, the center's
It's like
party.
when you first came up with, I need to be clear and communicate in one line that anyone can understand what my company is.
Yes.
Right? And that's totally what he did. And I think RFK kind of does something similar. Basic, it's like common sense, principles and values. What we all know should be done needs to be done. And it just takes someone brave enough to actually do it. That's all. And most politicians are just the most cowardly, just nonsense bullshit speakers. And it takes, very few to do. Well, we know what happens to the ones that do the right thing, but
I
it's
bet
getting harder and harder, I think, to take
said
out
when you were a
people.
little kid, you had these aspirations, and then the world kind of beats you down, and then you're like, no, and then later on, you're like, okay, I could do it again. I bet a large percentage of politicians, when you're like, I'm gonna be a politician, that moment was probably pretty romantic, and you probably thought like, okay, I'm gonna be the change and blah blah blah. But
Right.
then the political system probably beats you down like high school or worse, and then next thing you know, you're like very corrupt and just like, hey, that's just the way it
Well, it
is.
starts small, small, little thing by little thing. And, and some people are like, yeah, well, even with Obama, who did, in my opinion, all the drone bombings and all this terrible stuff, right? He might have been a great person up to the point where he got to the seat of the president. And then, I think even Putin said this, like, all these people, all these politicians with grand ideas of change come in and they finally get to the president's seat in the Oval Office. And the guys in black suits come around, tell you what you got to do. And that's the end of the story.
And not even the guys
And
in black suits only, because it's also Walmart, McDonald's, and all of the big money
all
that gave you the money to run.
right, right.
And then
See,
you're just like,
when
hey,
I
we give
was
you this money. Now you got to do what we say.
when I was really young, I would ask my grandfather, why does everyone say the president is corrupt? Like, what? And politicians are corrupt. I didn't understand. I thought the president, I might have been like 8 or something. I was like, I thought the president is supposed to be a good guy. I always thought in terms of good guy, bad guy, like a little kid. And he's like, he explained it to me, well, in order to run for president, you have to have a campaign and bring awareness to who you are. You got to raise money and funds, and you got to go to special interests and, people with money, and they give you money to fund your campaign, and then you owe them favors once you're in office. And I said, well, why doesn't someone who is a billionaire or someone or a millionaire has a lot of money or good faith from the public who can raise a lot of money from the people and not special interests run, say nobody owns me, and then be the president and do the right thing? And he's like, it's a good idea. You're right. Someone should do that. And then when I turned 18, Donald Trump ran for president. He was a billionaire with all his own money, and he claimed that he wants to do the right thing, and said nobody owns him. And I'm like, this is exactly what I talked about. This is what I realized when I was 8. So that's the first person I voted for over Hillary, because I was like, at least I know Hillary's corrupt. I know she's got a lot of not good things, right? But Trump, maybe there's a possibility because he says no one owns him. And one definite good thing Trump did, in my opinion, is he woke people up. He made a lot of people crazy, but he made people at least enthusiastic about politics, because I think he was authentically himself a lot. And it may have not been great because he was very divisive, but it woke people up to people need to start voting and getting involved in politics. Didn't go the right way, in my opinion, but people started to pay attention more to not just have the same old system all the time. And it's taking time for us to like fix the political system, but I think he initiated that change we need.
Definitely lit some fire under people's butts, whether you liked him or hated him. During that same election, actually, like what you described, other than the billionaire, that's why I liked Bernie at that time, only because what I liked at Bernie is that I could watch a video of him 50 years prior, like preaching the same
Mm-hmm.
crap that he was, as an old guy.
Yeah.
Um, I do think that if he would have had the nerve to run against he and Hillary and Trump, he had a better shot, in my opinion, than Hillary. Maybe I'm just way off, just because Hillary was more of that, a lot more time playing all the different sides and all the different doors versus just
Mm-hmm.
like, but yeah, like for me living in Europe, um, if Bernie's our super left, and I believe he is, by European standards in Western Europe, he was actually like right wing as it gets. Because even like the eye-opening thing for me was in 2015, I was doing my refugee thing. Angela Merkel, head of the Conservative Christian Party, I believe it's called in Germany, let 1 million people who were not Christian into her country. And I opened my eyes to like, whoa, the right wing of that country is like more left than the left, because, but like, I don't know, the politics thing, I don't think that you should. I think that if you run for president, like, or anything, there should be like a cap, like you could maximum spend like 100K, and that everybody should get the same amount of airtime on like public radio and TV, and that's it. It's like and then the best person wins. I also joked recently that I told my friends, unless they're like physically handicapped, and in a wheelchair or whatever, or missing limbs, I think if you want to run for president, you should have to take like the elementary school PE test, like physical, like if you can't run a mile, like, but you could physically, you're on your legs. I don't know if you should be served, like able to fit, because it's a stressful job. Like, okay, so if Bernie, Hillary, Trump, and Biden ran like 1 mile and the winner took the presidency, who do you think would win? And would any of them be able to finish the race?
That would be a hell of a show to watch. I mean,
Yeah, like,
oh my God. That would be even more entertaining than the Elon Zuckerberg fight. I think watching
a
those four
million
run.
times more entertaining. But imagine how stressful the job of being the president of any country is. And if like
Yeah.
you're physically able to, like, I think you should be able to run 1 mile. Obama definitely could. Bush #2, he ran a lot. I don't think Hillary Clinton could run a mile. I don't think Trump could run a
No.
mile. I don't think Biden could run a mile. I don't think, and like, but if they can't physically run a mile or a half mile or a quarter mile or an eighth of a mile, how are they going to respond in like a very intense like situation where everyone's lives are dependent? I don't,
100%.
yeah,
I don't think there should be an age cap, but I agree there should be some physical test of your capabilities, mental and physical, both. Right?
I wanted to be a Green Beret. They tested my physical and mental just to get the contract.
Yeah.
I wanted to graduate, like when I wanted to pass the 5th grade, I had to like do like this many sit-ups and push-ups and
Isn't
like,
that weird for the simple stuff, but for like the biggest thing in the world, the leader of the largest army in all of human history, you don't got to do none of that. You just got to be convincing and call people a loser. And, it's complete nonsense. But going back to like you saying 100K limit and all the same airtime, what I find interesting now is people like Robert F. Kennedy. He talks about how podcasts are changing the game for running political campaigns, because the thing which is mental to me, they canceled the debates for the Democrat Party, which I didn't even know it could happen. Like, Biden's just like, yeah, I'm not going to debate anyone.
They were scared of what people would say or might say, or
Of
sometimes
course.
better not to say anything, maybe, is their thought.
But there's no political discourse to choose who your candidate will be. How does that not wake everyone up to the fact that, oh, this is completely staged. This is all made up. And Robert F. Kennedy is smart, and he's like doing all these podcast tours, speaking his piece. And I think good people, whether you disagree, like, do you know who Lex Friedman is? He's in Austin too, I believe. Yeah.
He's in Austin.
He had, who's, engineer and really big into science. And Robert F. Kennedy has some science claims that are very disputed about vaccines and stuff. And he's like, whether you disagree with him or agree with him, it's important to have someone on like this to have a conversation about these topics, among other things. And he had him on, had a very nice, beautiful conversation. And I think that's what needs to be done, is long form conversation. And Joe Rogan at one point offered Biden and Trump to go on. And Trump, to his credit, he said he would do it. But of course, Biden, refused again, can't debate. So
I do think that the podcasts definitely laid a hand. I think TikTok, like the politicians who are on TikTok are crushing it. Like they all seem to have like 1 million followers.
What's her name? Marianne Williamson, I see all the time, and RFK. Both of them are big on it.
Yeah. I think we might have to end it in a little bit just because I'm getting 1 million messages. And even though I turned my phone off, I don't know if
Okay.
it's the ping on the laptop, but like
Okay.
people are
See,
just gonna keep on. So let's cut it in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right. So I was going to ask you all these questions. I was going to ask you about the free vending machine, and you have a FreeWater app, right? That goes for the vending machine. Can you talk about that or no?
Yeah, we can. How about this? Let's just agree
Very
that
brief.
we'll do it. We'll do a show number 3 sometime soon, and then we could
That'll
finish.
be okay. How about we just do that soon? We can do a show. So I'll skip all those questions. Let me ask you, well, you mentioned free gasoline earlier. I was going to ask you, if you did free gasoline, do you think the oil companies would sue or try to assassinate you? But we even covered that kind of, how you built like a protection.
They would make more money. So from the way energy works today, whether it's renewable or not, it's centralized, meaning they make it at location A and they ship it vast distances and try to charge you the most money humanly possible that supply and demand allows.
Mhm.
So in centralized energy production and purchasing, yeah, me making gasoline makes them all more money because let's face it, if you didn't have money to pump the gas into your car, but beforehand you watched like 10 minutes worth of ads and now you put gallons of gasoline into your car, there's only more gasoline that's going to be put into cars and at the price that they're asking at the gas station. So they all get their money. But the true future in this is decentralized electricity that's renewable and distributed for free or negatively priced. And so the my models to make gasoline free today or whatever makes them more money. But I just had this conversation before this podcast with someone in the Middle East. The first government or company that finances my inventions on the decentralized free electricity, negatively priced electricity will rule the next industrial revolution, in my opinion. But it's not because you've taken all the electricity and centralized it and sold it. It's because you're helping the world to manage and facilitate the decentralized electricity as a service, meaning like, hey, Michael, I understand you found a way to make your own electricity and it's costing you next to nothing or free, but you technically don't have the know-how to share it back to the grid or do other things that are going to make you other money or advantages, and that's where the money and power comes in this next paradigm of not just because at first free electricity, free oil, it makes them more money, but on this new infrastructure, which we will build out if no one does it first, if the powers to be don't pull their head out of their ass, they're going to completely lose. But this is their opportunity to act proactively and 100 or 1,000x their current money. So it's kind of
Okay.
interesting to hear.
We'll have to talk about that more. I'll have to write that down so I understand it a little better, because I think that's obviously a lot to go into there. We talked about free medicine a little bit, but I'd written down Pfizer will definitely shoot you.
Hopefully not.
Free weed and free beer you're thinking about doing, right? Which is going to be huge.
So we're raising $5 million just for the legal behind free beer. And that will be recycled in the states where legal for free marijuana. Same thing in those states where like psychedelic mushrooms are legal. I own the domain freemagicmushrooms.com for a reason.
That's great.
But here's the thing. You saw what happened with Budweiser by having a trans actor in an ad. However you stand on that, everyone could agree that Budweiser is not happy financially right now. Whether you believe that it's immoral that you could be trans or you're in the trans community and you're like, hey, Budweiser completely like backed this person and now is pulling backing. And I think they kind of both sides think less of Budweiser after the fact on the way they handled it. Versus they
handled
probably
it horrifically.
They
did it the worst way.
In advance, they could have given Kid Rock like $10 million and have a trans actor there and had them both sharing a pitcher of beer. And it could have like brought everyone together. But look, when we launch free beer at some point, I'm not going to do it till I have the legal coffers filled for the money. But I'm also getting politicians from both sides of the aisle to support us. And that's what I'm working on behind scenes. Our government has a long history of politicians being elected because they gave people free beer. I was recently told by a government person that George Washington, when he first ran for office, not as president, but as something else, actually lost because he was like, I'm not going to give people free Grolsch, which was the beer of the time. And then after he lost, he was like, fuck, I got to win. And he brought back the free beer. The first politicians that back free beer, free food, free electricity, in my opinion, have a road right to the White House. The ones that go against it. And so, but imagine if
That's a very interesting concept to boost,
Budweiser
to like
had
launch
this,
the product. That's a
yeah. Budweiser had
yeah.
this issue with having a marginalized community member in a commercial. And but imagine the issue they're going to face when if they try to sue us one day for making beer free, or Heineken, because Budweiser's like, whoa, we're the America beer. But the most free thing of all time, like freedom, would be free beer that donates to charity. Yet there's a good chance that them and other companies and distributors try to then sue us. But I guarantee
I
by
don't
that
even
point,
understand how can they sue you for having your own company doing your own thing. I don't even get that.
anybody in America could sue anybody for anything at any time, and
And
whoever
just
has
because they have more money, they can destroy you, even though you've
yes.
done nothing wrong. That's so
But the
crazy.
nuance is, and here, we'll talk about free beer in a little bit, and then we'll call it if you want. But
I just want to ask you a couple funny ones. But do
okay,
you want to do free beer next time?
let me just finish
Tell me.
this thought just so
Okay.
we can. Every state has a law that's written slightly differently saying that you can't distribute alcohol for cheaper than the price of manufacturing it. That's the law. And so, but every time
Why? That makes
that's the law.
Why is that even a law? Who even
I don't know. I don't know why that's the law in the first place. I should look into it. But but now there's gray area depending on the exact laws within that state, because if you've ever went to an event, they might give you a free cocktail. Depending on the state lines, that is blurring the law. If you go to Las Vegas and you're spending money in the casino, they give you all the free liquor you want. So there's sometimes when they turn a blind eye, and they don't. Now, meanwhile, like in Vegas alone, ChatGPT 4 guesstimates that there's 75 million free beers being distributed in Vegas every year, just in casinos alone. That's a lot, 75 million. Now, those beers, say Budweiser, Corona, whatever, like Heineken, right? So those companies are totally happy right now that they're getting money so that their Budweiser branded beer can be distributed. But when I launched free beer in Las Vegas, and now every casino, instead of it saying Budweiser on the can, now it says Mandalay Bay, 25% off your next reservation, scan here, 50% off the buffet. Hey, go see Sigmeet Fried and Roy or whatever. Like, why wouldn't
That's so
they
smart,
utilize,
Josh. That's
why
so
wouldn't
smart.
they utilize their real estate? Because they're already spending it, they're just not developing it. Then these companies are gonna, my prediction, and I hope I'm wrong, they might attack us. But and they could hear this right now, and on everything I ever post, short and long form, I will have the politicians behind us, so their lobbyist card will not work. Number one. Number two.
Do you want to reveal this right now? What you're doing?
Totally. And number two, by that time we'll have double the following at least we have today. It will be a PR nightmare for any of them. Look at Budweiser just putting a marginalized member of society in a commercial. Imagine what will happen to like Corona or whoever if they go against the free beer movement, let alone free food. And then like any politician who tries to go against it will not be elected, in my opinion.
What is the timeline on that, do you think? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
The moment that I raise the 5 million for the free beer, we will start immediately.
Okay. So it depends.
I will instantly start building that factory as close to Las Vegas as humanly possible. And or other places, maybe New York, or it depends on where I decide at that time. And I will, have my own lobbyists working for us. And that same what's it called? The same legal behind free beer, I'll recycle for free legal marijuana. But I don't think, as far as I believe, there's no law stating that you can't distribute legal marijuana for cheaper than the price of manufacturing. So I don't even think there'll be anything to recycle. I'm pretty confident I could launch free legal marijuana today. But you could still face lawsuits just because anyone in America could sue anybody for any time, unfortunately.
That is unfortunate.
My
I'm just so blown away by you,
Michael,
Josh.
I
This is
could
so smart.
continue. I could continue for a while, but my wife
Okay.
is really worried. Can I just take a 1 minute break just to call her 30 seconds?
Yeah, sure. We'll be
And
right
then I
back,
have more,
everyone.
then I have all the time that you want. Should I
Oh, you
just,
want to keep going more?
yeah, we can, but she's really worried. So
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I apologize.
All right. No, that's fine.
Sorry about that.
That's
Never
fine.
had to take a cell phone break during a podcast, but I just don't want her to be worried. Okay. She was just very worried. Like, I forgot you're doing a podcast. Where have you been? Um,
Oh, that's okay. I understand.
a lot of people have told both of us throughout this journey that like I'm going to be assassinated, and it really bothered both of us early in our marriage. um and I promised her like, hey, this just because we're in Eastern Europe and a lot of people happen to be a little bit more cynical from time to time, but when we get to Silicon Valley, people will just say, oh, you're just a disruptor. But then we got to Silicon Valley, people joke and say the same thing, and so that's not why she was worried. She just like haven't spoke to her all day, but it was like an actual speed bump in our marriage early on
Hmm.
because nobody wants to hear that.
Oh, you froze. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear that. So it was a speed bump in our relationship early on.
Uh, I bet it is a lot of pressure, especially for your wife, thinking about that all the time.
I don't
Um,
think she necessarily does anymore. And again, we hide in plain sight. And like I put most of my best inventions on the internet.
mhm.
And so like,
I've always thought about similar things, even from an early point, because I don't talk about it often, but with my life, I intend to make, as you are making very big changes in the world, I plan to also be a disruptor, and maybe I overestimate myself maybe, but I want to really make a big impactful change while I'm here. And I kind of uh know I'm supposed to after all the times I've died and stuff. I kind of got the message finally, clearly, because I ran from it a little bit, didn't want to. Like we talked about earlier when I was a kid. Like when you're a kid, you have all these things you kind of almost inherently know, like intuition, like, oh, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. Like you kind of know what you're going to do. And then as I got older, life kind of beat me down. And I was like, oh, what am I thinking? How could I do this? It's impossible. I have they're telling me I can't do all this stuff. And I kept having surgery after surgery, injury after injury, you know, getting my glasses broken all the time from fights, you know, stuff like that. I'm like, am I crazy? Why do I know I'm supposed to do all this stuff? So I kind of hid it away for a while. And then even I got to the point, like, I know what it's like to, curse God. Like, why are you doing this to me? Why, as most people might in my situation, and you're just distraught and you're like, just kill me, get it over with. Just kill me, kill me, kill me. I was like that for a little bit. And then guess what God did? He killed me, kill me, kill me, kill me, kill me, kill me a
brought you back.
bunch. And he
Like,
kept bringing me back. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. And I inherently know what I'm supposed to do. And it's not that I don't want to. It's just for a while I didn't think I could, and it was so much responsibility. But I know I'm supposed to, and I want to, definitely with all my heart. So
knowing
I've always had the same kind of fears, and forever, whoever I'm ever with, if I ever am lucky enough to have a wife, I've always thought about what if I put her in danger, or the point where she's always worried about me, if I'm doing things that might get me killed as well and impacts her or a future family or something like that. So I understand that perspective where you're coming from.
again, I think if I went the greedy route and initially patented every one of these things that I know would have been the biggest patents of all time, I
Hmm.
think that greed would have gotten to me. And maybe you could end up like the guy who supposedly makes like the water powered car sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but look, I think hiding in plain sight and just being very transparent, or not even hiding in plain sight, just being available 24/7. Like, I mean this when I say like the CEO of Coke called me right now, I would help them. Like, because I don't think that there's any competition with like trying to make the world a better place. And, like that's just the way it is. And I do think like you saying that you're bound for bigger things, even if you're just saying it and are uncertain at the time, or if you're fully confident, is beyond the first step, because most glass ceilings everyone imposes over themselves. And then the second layer is like what society imposes over you. But just by, most of them we impose over ourselves, whether it was influenced by society or friends or just on your own. And like, you've already broken a lot of the glass ceilings above you. And that's why I like hanging out with you. And that's why you're definitely bound for great things, in my opinion. Greater things than already.
Thank you, Josh. And I think that's why you're so successful, is that you didn't go the greedy route. And I view you almost as a mentor. I think that I think you're probably a mentor to a lot of people, and will keep on. I think you'll be studied. I think that all the decisions you made. I know it's weird to think about, but I think that when people call you Steve Jobs, and you're like, I don't really want to be called that. I want to be my own thing and all that. What they really mean is you're a visionary, and they appreciate the steps you've taken to do the right thing. And that's what they mean by calling you a Steve Jobs, even though Steve Jobs had the, factories in China and the suicide nets. But that's what they mean. That's their intention.
It was just a mean person. Like if you ever see any docu-series, like he was just not a nice person.
Yeah,
I
I like the
I don't
Michael
want to be
Fassbender
that.
movie with
Yeah.
how he treated his daughter and the whole. Yeah, I mean he was screwed up. Like, right, he was an orphan. He had a lot of
I
obviously
think
insecurities and psychological issues, but he knew it was good. He knew about design. He knew that Steve Wozniak didn't really have the vision for it. He had the intelligence, the know-how, but it would have
didn't
really
have the
maybe
package.
gone nowhere.
I think everybody has their own motivations, and I don't think money. I look at it neutrally. It could be a great motivation, or it could be a poor one. That doesn't motivate me. And so, but I knew that in order for this to scale, people would have to get rich. So I spent many years making sure that this would be the most profitable endeavor of all time. So again, I think that's also me trying to change the system from the inside out. But there's nonprofit ways to accomplish the same thing, or similar things, or different than I'm going for. And I put that information out on the internet too. And so we did a fundraiser a while back. We raised like 20 grand to go towards the first free vending machine prototype. It was amazing. Those people, were forever in debt to them. We put their names on the website out of appreciation, but some of those people paid a couple $100 to get first access to a manual, which I've been working on, that discloses like a lot of the secrets of these new industries that I invented, but in a wide way where it doesn't necessarily, if I want to go the patent route on some future things, it doesn't necessarily end those opportunities. It's just taking me longer because I have dyslexia and I'm bad at reading and writing, and also because we're busy. But I am very passionate about getting that out before the end of this year and giving those people access to it, because I do think that the information needs to be out there. And also, once it's out there, I would love for the economic and scientific community to try to poke holes in it, because it's not healthy. No one's been able to ask me a question about the things that I invented that I didn't already solve the answer for since summer of 2019. Actually, even like spring of 2019. And it's unhealthy because like if you or whoever the fuck like said, hey, you forgot something, I'll just buy a 6-pack of beer and sit in front of the whiteboard for 4 hours and then solve it. But like I'm really looking forward to publishing that manual. First and foremost, to pay homage and respect to the people who are supporting us and to give them that early access. But number two, to get the information widely available and allow this scientific and economic community to weigh in on it and maybe they'll point something out that I haven't solved, and then I'll just spend like a weekend and then crack that code. But I don't think that they can.
I really just see you as a, I know I know people like you, I'm kind of the same way. Don't really like compliments sometimes, or it's hard to take. But I really view you as kind of a hero. I really value the way you put this all together, how much thought and care, truly. And I was just thinking about, again, when it's taking you longer with your dyslexia and maybe learning disabilities or however you put it. I bet you, because you have those disabilities, you have to be more focused and take more time and care. You have to, in order to get it done. And my bet is it actually makes you more efficient, even though you might view it as a delay.
It's tricky. I'm at the point right now where I've even considered just releasing it in video format. Because
Hmm.
I have the ability. That's why I love TikTok. I love making videos, and I absorb information from videos a million times better than when I try to read something. But then I was like, maybe I'll go and make it video format, but then I could plug it into like a Chat GPT plugin and then have the
Hmm.
transcript removed from it. And so that's kind of the direction I'm going right now.
That's a good method too.
And then
That's a good method.
also like it's really hard for me um ethically to, where do I draw the line of the information I release? Because we are raising ideally a $25 million one-time round that builds our first FreeWater factory here in Austin, our first free beer factory, wherever I put that, the legal behind it. And it basically smooths everything out on the road to becoming a publicly traded company, which I believe will be in sometime between the next 2 to 4 years. And I know that the people who will write that $25 million check for equity, they're going to want every patent that they could get their hands on. And I agree with that, because I do want them to feel rewarded, and I do want them to get all the money that they get from their investment times 1,000, because I do, and that's okay to me. But if I had my way, I would just give all of the ideas away 100%, because people are going to take them and then they're going to use them in ways I never considered. And then that's going to allow me to iterate more quickly, because I'm like, oh man, that guy Michael, the chairman, he adapted my free water or free electricity model, and that's really innovative. But then bam, how about this? And I think that when something's not patented, iteration and innovation happens so much faster. And I really want people to innovate and societies to evolve faster. So that's kind of like my internal turmoil at this moment.
Could you put an expiration date on when the patent expires and say to all your investors, you'll make all this money right when it comes out and right when we're doing this for 5 years. And then after 5 years, it will be open source for everyone?
Patents have their own legal expiration dates, that are set by the US Patent Office. And
Hmm.
the system of patenting itself was designed by the wealthy class, not by people like you and I. Or it would be much cheaper, because look, Apple could literally file for 10,000 or 100,000 patents a year and financially be okay. But you or I don't have 15 to 20 grand to do a single patent right so easily. And so the system in it, and then once you acquire the patent, the way the system works, patent trolls and other people that have more means than you can make your life a living hell. And so I'm just not really fond of that system, just as I'm not fond with the status quo and the way corporations and governments work. And so I might just go full trade secret. Now, trade secret just means, hey, I know something you don't know and decided not to patent it. And the people who have access in our company, they know it too. And in many ways, a trade secret has more advantages in that it stops from some of these other things happening, or you having to deal with the enforcement of your patent. Because imagine if I go and I patent negatively priced electricity, General Electric and Shell are not going to make it easy for me to enforce my patent on them, right? They're going to make it a living hell. They're going to push the court date back 1 billion times. They're going to, and so instead of going that route, if I have it my way, I'll just open source as much of it as I can. I'll trade secret some stuff that I feel I should just keep within a certain group of, the company, and try to empower people to make fast change as fast as humanly possible, because like even the other week, like 2 weeks ago, every week someone on LinkedIn is just like, hey, inspired by FreeWater, now we're launching free tampons in Denmark and this and that. And like, it's amazing. And like, I don't want to hinder those people and be like, hey, I'm going to come after you now. Like, I want to applaud those people.
That's so the complete opposite of what everything is now. That's so amazing. It's how it should be.
But how do you
collaborative
go about it? And like, even our advertising policy, initially I was like, we'll be neutral like Switzerland, because that allows anyone to advertise, and the more ad dollars we bring in, the more we give to charity. However, recently there's been some issues in the policy, and now I have to make adjustments where we can't no longer be fully neutral. I'll give you an example. Politicians are reaching out and they're inquiring. I can't say who or what party because they signed documents, but they're like, what will you and what will you not allow? And I'm like, no fake news, no this. And so by me just saying already that your ad can only be vote for me, this is what I believe in, or there's so of the whole like multi-billion-dollar political ad thing, 51% of it is why you shouldn't vote for the other person, which is mainly slander. And then like 25% of it is, I agree with Michael on one hand, but on the other hand, this is why I think Michael sucks. And only 25% of it is why I believe I'm the right person for the job. And so ethically speaking, I don't want to take the 50%, the slander one, but Google and everyone else does. And so by me already saying, well, it could only be vote for me or agree yet disagree ads, now I'm throwing like $4 billion, because it's like an $8 billion marketplace or 6 or whatever. I'm taking half of it and I'm already handicapping our company against Google and Facebook and other people, because I don't think that that's ethical. I think that someone should win because of what they stand for, not by slandering the other guy. But then it's just like, like I can no longer be neutral like Switzerland in some of these things, just because I want to raise the bar of business ethics well beyond Google, Facebook, or like in modern society and publicly traded companies. I think Patagonia is the modern definition of business ethics, but we're raising the bar so high that in the world we're creating, they would register as the least ethical company out there. And it's hard when you're trying to make such dramatic changes. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you. That
For me,
curve
would you let anybody advertise anything?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I would do exactly what you're doing. I think that because you're ethical in your advertising, anyone who criticizes, oh, you're trying to be a socialist, oh, you have all these ads everywhere, you're bombarding people with advertisements and corporations in this dystopia, all those people who will be critical of you, when you explain things like that, when you have made those choices in the long run to make ethical political ads, when all your competitors are doing the complete opposite, like especially Facebook, you have proven yourself to earn your spot of where you are. I think you're doing 100% the right thing, and it is going to be hard, and you're going to have to keep explaining to people, yes, we're losing that opportunity of that extra $4 billion, But in the long run, we are doing the right thing, and doing the right thing going forth in the future is the profit. Doing the right thing, ethics is the future.
But it's
That is the
tricky
future.
when if I took the other half of the slander money, it would still build the water wells for the people who are literally facing the global water crisis firsthand. And so that's the ethical conundrum is
Right. But you can't, just because you have the opportunity to do more good that way by doing harm this way, I think it's wiser to keep doing good without doing the unethical harm, in my opinion. I think you will make it to that point, and I don't think you have to be unethical. I think keep doing podcasts like this as much as you can, keep getting out there, keep growing as fast as you can, and don't go the unethical route.
it's like here,
That's my
check this
opinion.
out. So we distributed a lot of these at South by Southwest. There's 6 ads on here. I gave a case to a person recently in the last 90 days.
Hmm.
And they were like, what's your take? Do you accept any ad? We're like, no, we don't allow um hate speech, hurtful content, blah, 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 blah. They were like, well, what's this ad right here? I'm like, that's for a cookie company. They're like, well, I scanned it and it's like an LGBTQI cookie company.
Oh,
And I just said, so what's the deal? They're like, this is hate speech to me. And I didn't
I
know
th-
how to respond to that, but what I just, so what I realized from that, they actually said it was demonic. That was demonic hate speech. But I didn't argue with it because I want to respect everyone's opinion, whether I agree or disagree. And even the trolls who attack me on the internet, I always remind myself I want to give them free groceries too, and free medicine and electricity as well. But what makes America great is the melting pot. But what also makes it tricky to navigate in my situation, trying to raise the bar of business ethics, is you can't please everybody out all the time. And like some people are getting mad at me for creating free water that donates to charity. And like, and I see it, I get it. Like, okay, it's weird, it's different. You could say I'm weird or I'm different. I'm really trying my absolute hardest to, I spent, 6 years, last 6 years of my life to create this and plan it as ethically as possible. But you really can't make everybody happy, no matter how hard I try. And that's always hard for me because I am trying to make everybody happy with this project.
I wouldn't aim to make everybody happy because that's never going to happen. And you should, if you make everyone happy, there's a problem. Everyone can't be happy. Um, Regarding the hate speech thing, I wouldn't say that you don't. I wouldn't use the term "we don't allow hate speech." That is a political term now, because anyone can identify. Oh, well, I feel that's offending me. That's hate speech. That's hate speech. Any side can say that's hate speech.
And how would you say it differently?
I would say we don't allow any racist content or any. I would have specific items
Discriminatory,
because hate
discriminatory.
speech is an overarching term that can be interpreted for anything, and people can own it from any perspective, and you don't want that. You should
Yeah.
be very specific in your outlining of what you allow and don't
We'll be
allow.
forced to this whole thing, and like just the way we're growing so quickly, I've had to examine like Facebook and Google what they allow. I didn't realize on Google you can't advertise easily if you're a locksmith or if you're a garage door mechanic. And like digging deep into it, I assume it's because they got sued so many times because you're like, oh, I lock my keys in the house. I hire the locksmith on Google, and then they make an extra key, and maybe they rob you blind, and you sue Google. So like, if you have those two professions, you can't just advertise. You got to go through like all these vetting layers to make sure that Michael's locksmith company is ethical. And it makes me like, should I, it's really been eye-opening on the journey, but also the difference is that I have physical billboards. So if I
Hmm.
give you something that was meant to be targeted for you and you physically go and hand it to someone else, that is no longer, I still have the FreeWater logo over here, versus Google and Facebook, they're able to target you and keep their whatever, like keep their secrets a secret more. And like I also saw that Google says they do not take ad money from like the NRA or firearms companies, yet all the articles underneath it says like they do 100%. I don't ever want to be in that situation where we're telling the world like, hey, we don't allow a certain type of ad, but I'm possibly secretly like under the table, like taking, that's not how I want to do business, and that's not why I'm here. And but it's very tricky, because that's like capitalism is a very, it's called zero-sum game. And what we're doing, the giving economy negatively priced thing, I believe it's everybody wins. And so it's a different model, but in order to change capitalism, you have to use it to kind of implode itself. And I have to kind of carefully pick and choose my fights in these early stages, and pick and choose the hard lines that you'll walk, because I just want to build more water wells,
I get you completely. And I just think we have crony bad capitalism. I think because you're obviously, like you say, still capitalist, you're making money. You're just doing ethical, proper capitalism. You're doing it as it should be, instead of having all these people that we talked about, like, the people that will sue you because they have more money and they can bully you for no reason. And I mean, there's no common sense in society where that should be allowed to happen. Or people, once you patent something, to come after you and try and, you call them patent trolls, come after you for that. It's all nonsense. None of that should be allowed, but it's allowed on purpose, obviously. I keep doing the ethical thing, even though it's hard. And I think you will pave the way, and others will keep following you. And others who copy you, it'll keep rolling out more and more and more. And I think the trickle down from what you're doing is, I believe for good men truly live very hard lives, because it's not easy to be a good man
good
in a
people
corrupt,
regardless,
good people just in general. Yeah.
whatever your gender is, like,
So I
as
didn't
long
mean that. I didn't mean,
oh no, yeah, my wife would yell at me if I didn't say anything.
Okay. So, good people in general, just, you will live a harder life because you're in the duality of this world with, a lot of our world is run by corruption and evil, and it's rigged on purpose. And in order to do the right thing, it will be very difficult. But that's why it's so crucial for good people to rise up. Because if you don't do it and I don't do it, who is going to do it? It takes courage and bravery. Like, one of my favorite quotes from Teddy Roosevelt is, courage is not having the strength to go on, it is going on when you don't have the strength. I value that immensely. And, I'm sure, like you say, working all day, trying to figure out the right way to do this, being ethical, what choice do I make? I can keep building water wells, helping people, but I got to take all this money that I think will harm people here at home, and lead to a more corrupt political system. How do I balance the good and evil, right? But you mulling over these decisions, doing your best, and you're tired and you feel like you can't go on, you just want to get it over with. That's what it takes. It takes having no strength to keep going, but you keep going anyways. That's true courage, Josh. The world needs that.
But beyond that, that's why I also recognize that things could be hard. I also recognize that someone could buy this company and then completely flip the switch in the future. So that's why, have you ever heard of a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization? It's big in like the crypto world.
I've heard the term before, but I don't know much about it.
It means you've created a technical process that's fully automated, and you thought it out well enough where if it's a company, you're financially viable, yet it automatically runs, no people involved. That's it. It's just completely decentralized and operates on its own. I couldn't fully do that with this in a certain way. However, there's so many fail safes involved that even I think like if the most unethical person in the company, like we become publicly traded, they at that point you're public, someone could just swallow you and buy you like Elon did with Twitter. Um, Even if that happened and the person who did it was in bad intention, I believe that I planned out through the years of planning enough fail safes in there where they could not change the moral compass that much. And so, and a lot of that is more on the tech side and just processes side, which is not really obvious. Um, but I am proud of that and excited for that. Um,
I wanted to ask you, what do you think formed your moral compass? What are the major factors?
this family, maybe TV. I love TV. Always love TV, especially because I'm not a reader. Um, as a personal trainer, my first business, I always liked helping people. Um, Mainly guilt. I think traveling, because I had a very American perspective before I spent a lot of time abroad. And I just
Mhm.
accepted the things that were told to me, um, because it's a part of being in any society. And then when I was shown other things, I guess I was at least open-minded enough to consider them and make my own decision at that point. An example is like many Americans, like if you say we're not the best at any one thing, oh, you're un-American, like get the heck out of America. But like, look, like statistically, we do not have the best medicine in the world. It's a fact. Like, and if you say that I should leave America because I say that we don't, like, I think that's un-American, really, like in terms of like founding fathers. But like, you know, I personally, what I think America does best at Hollywood, sports, because we throw the most money into sports. Um, and I do think for like the 1 in 1,000th person, we some of us take entrepreneurship to a different level. And it's just because we do have a culture of like people like Steve Jobs, like going into a garage and out comes an Apple computer. Not every country has that to lean on.
So innovation, entertainment, and probably war,
And
and
sports. Yeah,
sports. Really,
and
that's
war,
not
I guess, but
entertainment.
I don't, yeah, I think we could do that better if we wanted to by not having the military industrial complex and not wasting money, not spending like $1,000 on a hammer and $1 million on a screwdriver. It's not really smart.
Well,
So,
probably that always goes into like they say the black books, which we're
but
finding out is
so,
probably all the alien stuff and
yeah,
all
sure,
that's
maybe it goes into like Area 51 or whatever the heck,
you know.
but like, I think that it's okay to say and recognize when you or an organization or a city or a state or a country has problems and you want to deal with it. Like I'm not I went to a couple AA meetings at one time, not because I had a problem with alcohol, because I smoke a lot of weed and I just wanted to go and check it out. And people very quickly made me feel like I wasn't necessarily welcome at it because someone said like, like I'm doing a lot of this drug and what you're doing, there's nothing wrong with that. And what I didn't like about AA was that it was religious based. Everyone's got their own religious things, and I don't want to dive into that. But like, I did like that the first step was admitting that there's a problem. And I think whether it's like alcoholism or fixing the healthcare in this country or um, being more environmentally friendly and not throwing so much plastic trash into the freaking ocean. Like, what bugs me? Even though I loved Bernie Sanders, he never one time said that there's like 5 islands of trash in the ocean bigger than Texas. Not one politician has ever mentioned that in US politics on any side. Whether you think global warming is real or fake, I do think global warming is a government and oil company word because it's arguable. But if somebody just said plastic in the ocean is bad, you can't argue that. So that's never the conversation, you know, because when they want to keep you divided, like they'll give you the ammunition to stay divided. But I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting, like before this call, you said, hey, like all of my bones are out of place and I'm always in pain, but I'm trying to work out and I'm noticing some results. Like you said, hey, like I've got all my bones in the wrong place and it hurts and I don't know, but like I'm gonna work out. And like that you said, hey, like I'm getting out of shape. Like I'm out of shape right now. Like there's nothing wrong with admitting like that you have a problem or that there is a problem or that you think you've identified a problem or just by saying I'm not sure if there's a problem or not, I'm undecided. I think
But again, when you admit there's a problem, then that comes with all the responsibility to change it. And most people don't want to face that responsibility. And they live in fear of all that, whether you're a company, whether you're an individual through your daily life. Most people would rather either play it off and keep getting greedy if you're a company, or they would rather watch Netflix if you're an individual, or porn or video games or whatever the distraction is. They don't want to deal with the responsibility and live in fear.
I guess, and I was definitely one of those people. So I don't know what it was, but you know, I stopped
Well,
wanting
we
to.
all are until any person in our position, right? We all were like that until we decided to change it, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like everything you want is on the other side of fear, right? That's what the saying is, and it's true. You have to face your fears. Like I went through the same phase you said you went through, where, like you said, within a couple of years or within a couple of months, you said like 6 months, you faced just most of your fears and you just grind them out. You're like, I need to do this. I've hit that same point too. I didn't care what it was. I didn't care how hard it was for me to do. I did all of them, and then every step of the way, every time I conquer a new fear, it's almost addicting because you're like, oh my God, I got rid of that. Oh, I got rid of that too. I don't fear this anymore. And some were involuntary too. Like I feared eye surgeries. I feared like my one thing was going completely blind, like because I was legally blind, but I could see some things, right? But I was like, if I ever completely lost my vision, that was my biggest fear. If I just saw black or nothing, and then it started to happen to me. I started to basically the lenses in my eyes, my natural lenses, were subluxing and slipping out, and they also told me you're going to have retinal attachments and probably go blind as well, completely. And I was going to different eye surgeons, and none of them would treat me because they said you're too much of a liability. You're just going to have to go blind.
Yeah,
And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You won't.
Right.
You have the ability to help me, but you're specifically choosing to not help me. And they're like, that's right. And I'm like,
I
great.
hate that. I hate that.
And I was, to say the very least, extremely distraught to the point where I didn't want to live anymore, right? I did not want to be here anymore because that fear was coming. And for several other reasons, I stayed here, which I won't get into now. But then, the day came and I started to get retinal detachments, and my lenses I could, over time, I could see them, slowly, faster and faster slip out. I'm going more and more blind, losing my vision. And then finally, one day, I thought I was having a retinal detachment and about to lose my right eye. And we find just a random doctor. We find a random eye surgeon, and we go in. I meet him. He had just moved here from, I think it was Boston. He went to Harvard, and before that, he was in Greece. And I'm Greek too, so whenever you meet another Greek person, you kind of have a bond immediately, anyways. So he was from Greece, went to Harvard. He just moved here, like that month or that week or something. And he's like, "Well, good news, Michael. You're not having a retinal attachment right now, but guess what? I invented a surgery specifically for Marfan syndrome, severe Marfan syndrome, like you. Only person in the world who moved there that week." He's like, "So you're not having a retinal attachment, but I can cure you. I can fix your eyes." And I'm like, "What?" Which is a miracle. The odds are insane that happened. So we scheduled the surgery for that summer. June, after I was done with school. I think that was after my second year of college. So we schedule it then. I go in at the day and time of my appointment. He's doing the pre-check in my eyes to make sure everything's good before we go and do surgery. And he's like, well, Michael, there's a bit of irony here. And I'm like, what's the problem? He's like, well, you came to me because if you thought you were having an emergency retinal detachment, and I told you you weren't. Well, today you came to me and I just saw your retina detach during the eye exam. And I'm like, what? He's like, so instead of fixing your eyes, I need to save your right eye right now. Otherwise, you'll go blind immediately. So we're doing a completely different surgery. And I'm like, what are the odds of it happening at the day and time he's looking in my...
At least you were there.
Oh, if I wasn't there, I probably would have lost the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the day and
time. Timing.
Insane timing. And he, so he fixed the retina, and then he put in the lens and had the retinal attachment in my left eye, fixed that lens, another retinal attachment, detached the lens. I had to go back and forth for all these eye surgeries, and now I can finally see. I forgot how we got on this topic. Sorry. That's told the story. Anyways.
Awesome story, though.
Thank you. No, it was a crazy... Oh, we were talking about fear. So yeah, that was my biggest... that was my biggest fear. And I couldn't even do eye drops before. Like, I would freak out. I could do heart surgery, spine surgeries. You know, I can get punched in the face a bunch of times. Went through all that stuff. I wasn't fearful of anything. Last fear. Now I do eye drops every night because I have to for pressure. Don't give a shit. I just did my last eye surgery recently, and I elected to stay awake during the eye surgery. I told stand-up jokes as I did the eye surgery, working on my the iris in my eye. I just stayed awake while they're like a horror movie, just working on my eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways. Okay, we've been going for, I know, a long time. This is, I think, my longest podcast ever. This is
all right,
well, a cool one.
If you want, we could do one more question. If not, we could call it a show. Let's do one more. Last one.
Okay, one more. For your other free products, would you ever advertise Plan B on condoms and it reads, just in case Plan A broke? That's all. This is a silly one.
Free condoms will definitely be a thing. They already are a thing in places where, you know, it's paid for by nonprofits and government. What you have to consider with any advertising medium is that every different medium may or may not include certain types of advertisers. And I'll give you an example. A really cool entrepreneur from Israel called me at like 4 a.m. the other night. I was working at 4, so it was okay. And he wants me to do free toilet paper with him. And free toilet paper is something that's already going to happen, but he created a patented way of dispensing it. And he is having trouble monetizing it because, you know, he invented it. He's a great inventor, but he's having problems. So could it be ad supported? And what could you tinker with right now at 4 a.m.? And I told him it can, and this is why. But I said that the issue that we will face with your advertising medium is that some brands will not want to be associated with someone taking a shit, right? Versus like water, where it's a little bit different, or a billboard or a TV commercial. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, just brainstorming, I'm like, I can't predict this, but maybe food brands will not be wanting to associate with that. Maybe car brands, maybe there's one car company that really doesn't care, but maybe the other ones will. Like maybe a BMW will not want to be associated with that, but maybe like Ford or GM are okay with that. And so every new type of advertising medium on its own has its own type of demographic, and also limits on its own naturally, just through like Darwinism, through company perspective of what they should or shouldn't do as a brand, will kind of naturally occur and mix together, and out comes a list of like only through trial and error people who would and wouldn't advertise. Like a different example in the toilet paper is like if we had free adult diapers, which is a big demographic with baby boomers, and many have actually asked me to do that, and we just don't have the money yet to do that. The advertisements on adult diapers would be different than the advertisements on children's diapers, right? Or like if we had free kombucha, the average kombucha drinker right now is probably like a Gen X or baby boomer hippie, or like a hipster young person that has its own demographic. But if I had a free children's cereal, like imitation Fruit Loops or Captain Crunch sort of cereal, obviously that would probably be like video games, toys, and so I don't know who would be the advertiser on that condom, and what and how, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it will kind of take care of itself, but then again, there's the trial and error way of how little by little the ad medium won't be neutral like Switzerland, in that, like I really don't want people to have their rights taken away. And now sometimes just telling somebody, let's say if I was a bully in high school and I said like, you're fat or you're ugly or you're gay, if I thought that was an insult or this or that, but I just said, you suck, right? Just by me saying that, you could catch someone at their lowest moment and maybe you completely change their life for the better or for worse. And I think that that's the ethical debate that has to be discussed with all forms of not just advertising, but communication, because it really depends on what's going on with that person on that moment. Like 99 out of 100 times, the trolls on TikTok never get to me. And then on your worst day of your life is when that comment really stings. And then I'll catch myself about to respond to them. And then I'll like take a deep breath, I'll erase the comment and I'll block them. And then of course, like if I blocked, like I'll just use you as an example. If I block that Michael the Chairman guy because he's being a troll, then he'll come right back and make like Michael the Chairman version 1.0, and then I'll block them, and then 2.0. And then by like version 9.0, they finally realize like maybe I should just leave them alone, because it's how many TikTok accounts am I going to have just to try to troll this one person? But that's the thing with communication and marketing, which I think needs to be more openly discussed in society, is that you could completely change somebody's life for the better or for worse by making a simple suggestion at the right or wrong moment. And with physical advertising, because once I print this, it stays, it has its pros and cons. And, and a digital ad where it's extremely targeted and you're personally alone with you and your smart device and you receive this is also different, because we might allow something to be printed here and then 25 years later we change our policy, yet this billboard might stay. Maybe someone put it on a shelf as like a souvenir or like a collectible or whatever. But if Google does a targeted ad, that's gone. Like it's like it never happened 20 years later, especially if it changes the policy, right? And it's just a very it's very tricky, right?
But that's why it's so important, like we talked about, for as you're moving forward. I know you're eager to keep helping people with the water wells, but it is very important that you make the ethical decisions without doing further harm, in my opinion.
We're trying.
One last thing. What is the weirdest experience you've had giving away free water? I think I already saw it on TikTok, but just for everyone listening.
The very first day, I had free water prototypes to distribute. Freaking first day. And these were all blue free waters. No advertiser, just said free water, a QR code that led to our website, another QR code that led to a commercial. A person came up to me and said, I've been watching you for about an hour and you're giving everybody a free water, regardless of like their race, ethnicity, gender. Why are you so racist? And I'm like, what? I was like, well, you just said that I gave it to anybody. And they're like, yeah, well, you did that because you're like a closet racist person. And you want people to think that you're not. And then I reasoned with that person. I was really weirded out, and I just said, look, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm a very brutally honest person. You're making me feel uncomfortable right now. So if you want to continue this conversation, I'm gonna, cordially leave. And they're like, okay, whatever. So can I have another free water? And so I'm like, here. And then they like sat like a few feet from me, which made me feel more weird after that experience. And then as people walk by, they're just like, hey, take a free water. And then like, but in a very kind of scary way. And I left because I felt very uncomfortable. And then a few days later, I'm giving out water in a different part of downtown Austin. And then who comes but that person? And like, can I have a free water? And I'm just like biting my tongue, like, here you go. And then there's a lot of street performers in Austin, which is what I love it. There's a lot of live music on the street and in the bars and at restaurants, and an amazing street performer who I'm trying to mentor to like build a TikTok following right now, same person. And he's over there, the person who's kind of giving me this weird vibe is listening to the street performer, and it's like 100 degrees out because it's Texas in the summertime. And then they come over, they get another free water. And on like the fourth or fifth one, I just said, look, like in reality, the platform is only designed to give you 1 to 3 free beverages per person per day. And I've given you like 7 in the past 2 times I've seen you, and I've already given you like 4 today. If you don't mind, I kind of have to cut you off for the day. And I said it just like that, like very politely, and you know, and then they flipped out. And then they said that they're going to tell the whole internet that I'm a racist and that I'm an evil person, and then this or that. And then I had to take out my phone and started recording this person. I'm like, just so you know, I'm recording you right now because like you're scaring me and I feel very uncomfortable. And then they literally like physically sprinted away. And then an hour later, when I was giving someone else a free water and then like explaining the idea, that person comes back on like a bicycle, hops off the bike, and is just like screaming at me and that person saying that I'm a bad person, blah, 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 blah. That person got very uncomfortable and threatened to call the police on that person. And they hopped on their bicycle, ran away. And they're just like, look, like I just met you, but is this happening a lot? I'm like, this person has 3 times in like 2 days, my first 2 days giving out water. And they're like, hey, like I'm gonna record a video for you in your cell phone right now, just so I could express what just happened to me, because like you should kind of be concerned with your physical well-being. Like that's the type of person who is gonna like walk up behind you and attack you when you're not expecting it. And yeah, we recorded that video, and never saw that person again. It is a small downtown Austin. I'm shocked that I never saw that person again because I thought that it was a local, but it made me feel very uncomfortable. And now, like looking back at it today, even though like that's the last person I would ever want to spend any second of my life next to or near, I still want to give them fucking free groceries that donate to charity. Why? Because I want everyone to have access to that, regardless of if I like them or if I agree with their beliefs or if I just think that they're clinically insane or maybe going through like a very painful time in their life. And that's the way that they're expressing it. And, like if the most evil person that you think in your mind, whoever that representation of that evil can be, I want them to have free water and free food too, because it donates to charity. And I don't know, is that bad of me? Should I be saying like, no, like this person should not have access to it, but I really do want everyone to have free water and free food and free electricity that donates to charity. So it's kind of a paradox,
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that you should be concerned for your safety from the clinically insane. But no, I get you. Like they should still have access. You shouldn't deny them for that. But they were obviously you know, intruding on your physical safety and
Yeah. I
possibly
felt
so.
very uncomfortable.
Yeah. What about
After
the time? I thought I saw on TikTok that someone also took a shit on the FreeWater van or something. I thought you were going to say that
I
one. I
was
didn't know
during
about this
South
other
by
one.
Southwest last year, this last March, and it wasn't like malicious. Like there's the free water people, like I'm gonna try to poop on their van. No, it was someone who lives in the streets and they're pooping in the streets. And it's a really big van, and it kind of gives you some like coverage and privacy. And we're just like, damn, that guy's pooping on the van. We gotta kind of like ask him politely to stop. And
Like, did he do it behind it, or he got on top of it and went on top of the van, or he?
no, no, no. Yeah, that would be different if they were like on
Okay,
top of it, like trying to poop on the hood. We would have
that's what
called.
I pictured.
No, they were like
Okay.
leaning against it to, like almost like
Oh, okay.
against the tree in the woods, I guess. But
Okay. And they're homeless.
there are a lot of homeless
Okay.
people in Austin, nothing compared to where I'm from in LA. And look, a lot of these people, they need help too. And like, like, look, like, I guess that's my problem, Michael, is that for the industry I'm in, maybe I'm not cutthroat enough, but it really is my intention to prove to the world it's more profitable to do the right thing than the wrong thing in this endeavor. And I always have to remind myself of that. I also have to remind myself because early Josh in this project had the same long-term vision, but I was very strict on the path going there. And that also limited my personal growth and the project and mission's personal growth. And now every day, constantly, I have to remind myself there could very well be an infinite number of ways for me to achieve my goal. So keep an open mind to these ways, but also recognize that some I might be able to look back and be like, some were better ways than others. So I'm trying to constantly recalibrate. When you're lost in the woods, all you see is trees. And maybe once every week, or at least 4 weeks right now, I try to look from the perspective instead of being in the woods from the mountain over the forest. But it's tough, because you're in the thick of things, you're in the woods. But I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I just wanted to ask you to close out. Um, Speaking of the homeless, like I was going to ask you how free water would be helping the homeless community, but I also want to ask you, like, do you ever think of doing other free things homeless people might want, like free fentanyl? Joke.
Look, like
uh,
I'll be really real. I know someone in Austin that I'm trying to mentor them. They're making a vending machine that's free for people that are ODing on fentanyl because her ex-fiance died of it. And so I'm really trying
hmm.
to, mentor them on their journey of to save more lives.
Wait,
Um,
say what the vending machine does again?
their vending
Or,
machine, like if you were ODing on certain types of hardcore things,
mhm.
like hey, on this corner in LA or Austin or New York, that like if the worst, like I don't know, you had a bad batch or whatever, like you could run over there and get the cure for free from the machine, like no questions asked, no credit card, no app, no anything. Just hit like A1 and here it comes.
Okay.
But I brought this ad for you because I thought you might bring it up. Uh,
Okay.
Right now, this is my favorite ad we've ever produced. These are two nonprofits from Lexington, Kentucky. One's the Hope Center and the other one's Jubilee Jobs. One is the homeless shelter, and the other one gets homeless people job training and, if necessary, like clean if that's what they need, right? Um, they
That's
can't
awesome.
they can't target these people with Facebook or Google ads, right?
Oh my,
So
you're so right.
so instead of putting
Yeah.
the message in the bottle, like the proverbial message in the bottle, they put the life-saving information on the bottle
Hmm.
and put it in their hands. And they're now ordering their next round of bottles now with three nonprofits. And in these early days where we just make revenue off the physical packaging, no like percentage from shopping or these are my favorite types of ads because whether it's like Nike or I guess NBC, the current deal, or this, we make the same profit margin. And so why would I not want to try to layer as many good deeds as possible? So now if you're talking about people, whether they're homeless or just in a bad financial spot, consider all the food banks in America that are financed by the government or by nonprofits. They're just wasting their real estate. Every loaf of bread, every can of beans or box of cereal, should have the information on the packaging that helps that person improve their situation. And so if you do it right, there's a targeted message or line of communication for everybody from all walks of life.
And that won't be annoying either because it's valuable.
No, totally. Like it's
Exactly.
valuable.
Yeah.
You're not saying like, here, buy this Toyota truck. You're saying like, hey, here's a list of all the upcoming job fairs. Here's a list of like whatever, right? Because everyone's situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
And people in the early days would criticize me and be like, oh, only rich people will get your ad medium. And number one, just by getting 10% of Americans to drink one free fucking water a day, we're going to donate more than $1 billion a year to some of the mathematically poorest people on earth. But look, like these are some of the poorest people in America.
And you're helping everyone all at once and giving homeless people water and other free resources in the future.
And
It's
so,
beyond win-win.
but again, if you consider like the number line, here's 0, here's 1 penny, $10, $1 trillion, and over here -1 penny. I do believe that mathematically speaking, this isn't capitalism, because capitalism and socialism and Uber, which is the sharing account, they live on the side of 0 where things cost money. And over here, -1 penny and beyond, there's a new set of rules that I identified that are not achievable on the other end. And so on the right side of 0, where things cost a penny or more, it has really been zero-sum game. But I like why you say everybody wins, because I've created this system and I've put checks and balances to create almost like a DAO-like system, like, decentralized autonomous organization, even on the economic model itself. But like, we're just a new type of, right now, because I have found ways to do it without the ads. And in the future, I intend to give everybody all their water, power, electricity, everything, food, no ads, and we still make money. I just can't afford to do that at this date because it costs more money to get that off the ground. I will disrupt our current model with that model later on, or those models.
You're going to disrupt yourself. That's that's so interesting.
But right now, with the current communication supported model, right? Because I would consider this not advertising, communication, versus this being advertising. That we're a new type of real estate developer. If you take all the beverages in the US, non-alcoholic and alcoholic, no one has an exact number on those total number of units, but with ChatGPT-4, we guesstimate it's somewhere between 600 billion and 1 trillion beverages a year to start. Not even 1/100,000th of 1% of those people are using their layers of real estate correctly. Right? And now if you look at every loaf of bread, all these other goods like box of medicine, this and that, like we're just helping people utilize their real estate that they're paying for, but developing it in a way that makes their lives better, makes their company operate more efficiently, helps all of society by helping the people who need to get a message in their hand. We're just a new type of real estate, right?
Still blown away. The more I talk to you, I love everything about it, Josh. So we went about 3.5 hours. So, we can always do another podcast. I don't know how I'm going to break this up because we told so many stories and we
post it
went
all.
around
Post it all as one. Make them sit through and listen to the whole thing.
This is basically a Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, he does like 3 hour. It's like even longer than a Rogan episode.
I did tell you are the next Joe Rogan, so it was a warm up for you.
And you're the next Steve Jobs,
and a warm up for me on when I do get on his show one day. And look, let's call it at that. And for you and everyone else out there, like you really are. I'm told all the time that I'm an inspiration to many people, but people like you are where I get inspired from, which is why like I'm happy to be here. And I would do this show with you every week if you had me, just because I really believe in you and everything. And like I think you're truly doing amazing stuff on your own journey. And like who the fuck knows where you're going to be in 10 years, because you've got an awesome trajectory too. And I'm just glad that I could, even during the few hours of a podcast, just be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Josh. It genuinely means a lot. And hey, we could do an episode every week or every month or something, do a checkup. And I mean, we talk about more than just FreeWater and stuff. I mean, we venture off into many other subjects, and we have great conversations. I genuinely enjoy your perspective and your view on the world. And you're not just some like other like random guy on a podcast. You genuinely have been in this. You have well-formed, thought out ideas that are valuable for not just me to hear and that I enjoy, that for everyone else to hear. And I think between the two of us, just bouncing off of each other, I think a lot of good things come from it. So we could figure something out. That would be fun. Or start a new podcast. I could do, this one's still on my own, and we could do one together. We could start.
Yeah.
Something.
Look, I'm in. We'll chat about it, I guess, offline, not on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, thanks for everything, and I appreciate it. And looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. So you want to plug? So the website is freewater.io, right? For now.
Obviously, everyone out there, if you're watching or listening, we covered a lot of crazy topics. If you want to just follow along, check out our website, freewater.io, freewater.io is all of our social media stuff. If you just Google Free Beverage Company, you'll see a bunch of stuff. If you check out cool podcasts like this, I do longer form content that you would never see on the internet. And if I could be helpful in any way on your journey, please reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. And if I have the bandwidth and time or could help, I'd love to help.
Awesome. And then also for myself, check out my new website, michaelthechairman.com. If you want to see some of my sit-down stand-up comedy, I got this podcast, my other podcast, Walk and Roll, and you can hire me to make your podcast, launch it, manage it, do whatever, or just work on content ideas or social media management. So thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this special episode. I think it's my favorite one I've ever done. So
Me too.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks everyone for watching. See you in the next one.